Hello everyone! I got a little bit of an unscripted one here for you today. This is something I've thought about doing, but I never really decided to do, I guess. And that is a longer form unscripted video. It's still gonna have some structure. I divided this into like 6 parts I kind of want to talk about. But the whole gist of this is kind of just to like walk you through maybe a cube design process. This one's gonna be for a bit of a wacky cube. It is a 2-headed giant cube. So I'll go over what that means in a little bit. To kind of go around the screen here and introduce you to things. There is music here. I don't know if you want to like listen along, I guess. There's not going to be any audio from the music besides maybe from my microphone. It might pick it up because I have this music really loud. It helps me talk better. There's an enrichment deer if you have this on your main monitor like a psychopath. The point of this video is to be listenable. So yeah, I mean, let's get started. But even if you're not listening, you can still, you have some treats up here.
Hello, Elk from the future here. Seeing as you're probably falling asleep to this video right now, bear with me for a second as I talk about today's sponsor, that being Manta Sleep Masks. Manta Sleep Masks are some of the best quality sleeping masks out there in terms of comfort and feel, thanks to its adjustability and ergonomic design. Normally, I'd be fidgeting with uncomfortable earbuds in bed on top of a normal sleeping mask, but Manta has a solution with their integrated speakers and their Manta sound masks. You can listen to music, audiobooks, white noise, this video. I find that it helps me get the restful sleep I need, especially during travel. Trust me, your sleep is worth it. Get yours down below or from mantasleep.com and use code 33ELK at checkout to get 10% off your order. Thank you so much, Manta, for sponsoring this video.
So, this is my 2-headed giant cube. What does that mean? 2-headed giant is a format where it is 2v2 magic. What this means is you have 2 people on one team and 2 people on the other team, and the people on the same team can attack and block together, and you can block for your teammate. So the turns are shared. You have the same untap, upkeep, draw step main phase, and once the entire team decides to go to the next phase, they go to the next phase. So you share your turns. That does a lot of weird things to Magic the Gathering. One, having a teammate, it really does change the context of a lot of cards, which we'll go over plenty. And 2, it also really changes the context of other cards, maybe not in terms of like, I have a teammate now, so I can do this positive thing for them, but it also changes the context mechanically because the turns are shared. The shared turn rules are very weird, and we'll get into how we break them. I built this cube. There's no royal we here. How I broke them in this cube. So, I already wrote a primer for this cube, so this will kind of help us guide our way through the general themes of the 2 colors, and then we can hop into the actual list and break down those multicolor themes, which is our first section here. You can draft this cube online, by the way. There's a setup here that gives you advice on how to draft this online if you guys are interested. The link to the cube will be in the video description. All right, so starting with Azorius Flicker. Now, I know this isn't really that unique of an archetype for Azorius to have. However, the reason why it was chosen was there are just so many Azorius cards that can flicker any creature, which lends itself to a lot of fun play with your teammate. So they have a Flame Tongue Kavu, like this primer I think says. Yeah, Flame Tongue Kavu, which I'll flash on the screen by hovering this. Right, they have any other ETB creature like this, and you don't have one, that's okay. You can flicker their creature with a lot of the flicker spells in this cube. It's also just a play pattern, of course, I really enjoy. Very iconically Elk. Next up is Infiltrators. Now, normally Infiltrators, you'll get a lot of ninjas going on. That was something I wanted to avoid because ninjas really do just play with themselves. And what I mean by that is that you really don't need a lot of teamwork to make a ninjas deck good. Whereas like general Infiltrator stuff is maybe a bit more broad, a little bit less focused, unable to win by its own, but you don't need to be able to win on your own, right? You have a teammate there to help you. So Infiltrators provide good value, good blocking, or good attacking bodies, and that's very good for the theme we'll go over later, Spectacle Rakdos Aggro, as well as Boros Go Wide, as well as Selesnya Auras. So Infiltrators is really a deck that maybe can't do a lot on its own besides really crush with value and tempo, chip down, removal, spell, heavy kind of strategy. But it really can flourish with a good teammate, which is really what I want to highlight here, is that all of these were selected because of their fun play with teammates. Spectacle Aggro is the next one. This is probably the most narrow theme. There's just not a lot of cards that really care about Spectacle, sadly, but Bloomburrow did give us a couple lizards that did it. And basically the whole point here is that you want to be killing your opponent every single turn. It gets benefits whenever you're hitting your opponent. A lot of these cards are burn cards, right? A Rakdos colored player across the table from you means you're going to be taking very consistent damage forever. Next up is Gruul Ramp. Gruul Ramp is, once again, another unfun kind of theme, or not unfun per se, but uninspired on the surface sort of theme. But Nikia really made me want to do this because Nikia is such a fun downside card. And then also you have cards like Voyaging Satyr, which is just like, you can untap your lands or your friends' lands. And, you know, there's some fun red top end that can really destroy multiple opponents and take over the game by themselves, even against two people. Auras. So Auras is another, once again, on the surface, uninteresting theme. But when you dig a little deeper, you realize that Auras is probably the most interesting theme in this cube. Insofar in as you can enchant anything with an aura. If it says enchant creature, that can go on anything. If it says enchant land, that can go on anything. So once again, we can ramp for our teammates here. Cutsil is a very good Auras card because you buff something up, right? You get to draw cards off of it. But it also applies for your teammate as well. So if your teammate's like on a combo deck, you can play Cutsil, and that's just like Thoughtseize for your counterspell. You need to be able to answer this because my teammate's turn is also my turn. You can't cast spells now, right? So there's a lot of fun Selesnya, Hate Bears, and Auras and stuff. Next up is Life Gain. Now, Life Gain isn't really a theme I put in a lot of my cubes when I'm designing one. It's just kind of awkward because Life Gain by itself doesn't really do much. When you just gain life, there's not really a point because you're typically just going to get attritioned out or aggroed out or board presenced out. But here, what you're able to do is just take all the strongest payoffs and put them directly in the cube because you share a life total with your teammate. What that translates to is whenever your teammate incidentally gains life off of something, and we'll see all the incidental life gain there is in this cube, from the lands, from just cards just having life gain rider on them in any color, it's a lot easier to just like not worry so much about the setup and just run all the cool payoffs for life gain. Which was something I wanted to explore, which is just like manipulating the shared life total for Orzhov. Right. Next up is Red-Blue Discard, which is another kind of shallow theme. There's not a lot of cards that really synergize with discarding cards, but there are enough where I'm comfortable enough to call it a theme. And there's especially a lot of Reckless Scholar type of cards here, which is target player draws and then discards. Oh my goodness, my alarm's going off. Oh no, hang on, Near D and cut the... Anyway, as I was, discard red-blue theme is very loose. It's, once again, there's not a lot of cards that care about discard, but the ones that do are a lot of fun. Magmakin Artillerist, you have 2 opponents, so this does 2 damage every time you discard a card. Captain Howler can buff any creature with his ability. So you put it on your Dimir Infiltrator teammate's creature, right? And then there's a lot of cards like Reckless Scholar that say target player draws and then discards, which is very strong. And we'll get into a couple other play patterns that has as well. Next up is Golgari, which is Morbid Midrange, I like to call it. So Morbid is the main theme with Golgari. And the whole point is that you have basically 2 times the number of creatures as there would be in a normal commander game. And what that translates to is there's a lot more death. And what that makes for is a very good morbid setup where you can have a lot of like good graveyard mid-range stuff going on over the course of a game, good attrition kind of style strategy, but also benefiting from literal like death trigger cards. So very fun theme, very iconic theme for Golgari too. All right, we have Go-Wide Aggro for Boros. And what's fun about this here is that Battlecry, Battalion, and Mentor all work across the board to your teammate as well. So Mentor doesn't say, whenever this creature attacks, put a counter on an attacking creature you control. It says any attacking creature with lesser power. That means your teammates as well. Battlecry doesn't say attacking creatures you control. It says all creatures that are attacking get +1/+0, including your teammates. Firemade Avenger. Battalion doesn't count the number of attacking creatures you control. It's you and your teammates. It's really easy to trigger Battalion when you swing with your Dimir Infiltrator teammate. You could just have Firemade Avenger and they have 2 unblockable creatures, and you can trigger this every turn. Last up, we have Simic Counters. And Simic Counters was chosen because of the backup mechanic. Every color gets backup because backup's so much fun. But Simic's going to be the best at manipulating these counters. They're going to get proliferation, stun counters, as well as graft. Graft is also a very fun mechanic in Two-Headed Giant because you can graft onto any creature that enters the battlefield. Graft triggers every time any creature enters to move a counter from that grafting creature onto a new creature. Just for the people listening. Graphed, this creature enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, where X is the graph number. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may move a counter from this creature onto it. And then they typically have another ability that lets you target a creature with a +1/+1 counter to give it some sort of benefit. Blackscaster Frogling, for instance, here lets you give a creature Shroud until end of turn. All right. We do have some secondary archetypes, which is Gates. We'll get into that more when we start to dig into the lands. Reanimator, which we can just talk about kind of here. Every color has big monsters. And there's enough like flexible reanimation spells in this cube that also fit into other themes, and the blue-red kind of discard theme, where you can have a decent Reanimator deck if you manage to draft all the pieces. The best Reanimate is easily Exhume. No question about it. Exhume is very strong, because if your team knows about it and they don't, you can kind of set up your guys' graveyard and then get a double Reanimate for 2 mana, which is very strong. Lastly is Goblins. Goblin Matron just in the cube. There's a lot of really good red Goblins in this cube, and we'll kind of see those as we go through red. Okay, scrolling back up. Hooray! We've managed to make it through the primer. Now let's hop into Multicolored, and we can kind of break down the card by card breakdown for these themes and why I've chosen them. So once again, Azorius Flicker. I've picked cards that are mostly able to help your teammate, but there's also a couple funny inclusions here that we can kind of talk about. First and foremost, Disorder in the Court. You can flicker any creature with this. So of course it's just a kind of a shoo-in. Miss Meadow Witch. Once again, you can flicker any creature with this. It's a very annoying card because you can also flicker herself. So it's kind of a removal check where if you're just like, I can't remove the Miss Meadow Witch, you're in perma-hell. You're just stuck. Next up is Moderation. This is not a flicker card. Hopefully you could tell that by reading the card, but I'll read it out. Anyway. Next up here, we have Moderation. And those looking at the screen can tell this isn't a flicker card, hopefully, but I'll read it for those who are not. It is 1 white and blue for an enchantment. And it says you can't cast more than one spell each turn. Whenever you cast a spell, draw a card. Now, the reason why this is in the cube is because I really like cards that restrict you. It's a lot of fun to have one of these in play, and then your teammate picks up the slack. So you go Moderation, I'm only casting expensive removal spells. I'm only, I cast a spell during my turn and then a reactive spell in their turn. And then your teammate can tempo spam cards. Like, you still have another teammate that is making up for your Moderation, which is a lot of fun. It's a play pattern I want in the cube, even though this doesn't necessarily fit the Azorius archetype. Not every card in your 2 colors needs to fit an archetype. Reflector Mage is just a very good flicker target. It's also just incredibly fun into a giant where you go like, oh, damn, I have 2 opponents here. Which one do I target with my single target removal, right? Cloud Blazer, once again, another just good flicker target. It's nice advantage. No, nothing more to be said. Nice advantage and incidental life gain for Orzhov. Fractured Identity. Now this one's funny. In Two-Headed Giant, this doesn't necessarily work perfectly, but it does work in a very strong and funny manner, where if you have an opponent who has a creature that you want, when you exile it, you don't get rid of it because it just hops the board to their teammate. But you and your teammate get it, which is pretty nightmarish, especially once we get to like things like Nekusar in this cube. Or like Drakaseth, like some of the big red-green top end really gets punished by Fractured Identity. Next up, moving to Dimir. I almost said Baleful Strix. Baleful Strix is the first card in Dimir, but it is not the name of the color ID. So Baleful Strix is the first card we're going to be looking at for Dimir Infiltrators. It's just a nice card. It's able to be flickered by an Azorius teammate. It dissuades blockers. It helps the Golgari Morbid deck for that reason, insofar in as it's a Death Touch blocker. It's going to kill something, and then it's also going to die itself because it is just a 1/1. And it's also just a good thing to put like a Curiosity kind of effect onto, right? So it's just kind of the whole package. It's very good. Next up, we have Krydell. Krydell is a card that lets you make anything unblockable with its ability. Whenever you attack, you may pay 2. If you do, target creature can't be blocked this turn. And then it has just like this kind of minor combat damage ability. The Scry one does work with one of my favorite cards in the cube, which we'll get into when we get around to blue. But overall, the card's pretty decent. It's nothing to write home about, but it does support a lot of what Dimir wants to do in this cube, which is to get combat damage triggers, and then also to help your teammates get through with a giant creature or something. Likeness Looter is up next. This is a fairy shapeshifter, 1/1 for 2 mana, and it has flying. You can tap and you can loot with it to draw a card, then discard a card. And then you can also pay X to have it become a copy of a creature card in your graveyard with mana value X, except it has flying and this ability. Activate only as a sorcery. So it does stop becoming a looter at that point, but what this allows you to do is rebuy any important creature and give it flying. whoa, it's now an unblockable version of that creature, which is exactly what Dimir wants. And you can keep activating that ability when better and better things go into your graveyard. So just very flexible, very fun card. I love Lazov. Lazov the Multifarious is this design, but legendary. And it's just so much fun. Halo Forger. So this is a bit of a head scratcher because this is not an infiltrator. It is a flying creature, which does help the case, but it is just a Snapcaster Mage, but it's for any graveyard. So that can help you grave hate opponents if they have a good instant in their graveyard that you don't want them to flash back or something. But mostly the way I saw it was this is a Snapcaster Mage that you can use on your or your teammate's graveyard. So you can kind of coordinate what kind of spells you want with your teammate during deck building and then play the game with the Halo Forger being at its maximum potential without having to rely on an opponent's graveyard. Thief of Sanity. So this card is busted. I love it. This is my favorite infiltrator in the game. I think one of my favorite things about Thief of Sanity in a cube environment is that even if you only play the cube once, if this is in your deck, you get 2 experiences just intrinsically. You get to play Dimir infiltrators in this cube, but when you hit your opponent, you also get to play their deck, which is a lot of fun to be able to get the maximum experience out of this cube, even if you only draft it once in your entire life. Kaito. So Kaito is interesting because it's kind of selfish. This isn't my favorite card for Dimir, and it'll probably get swapped out someday when we get a better, more interesting Dimir two-headed giant card. But the point of Kaito here is just kind of being a fun, grindy reward for infiltrators. Other Kaito, honest to God, this is a budget inclusion. I don't want to run on other Kaito. It's too expensive, even though ninjutsu is rather fun. But this one gives all your creatures ninjutsu. You can rebuy ETBs like on Baleful Strix. And even then, the drone kind of plays into Rakdos theme, right? Because when the drone dies on his -2, it does 2 damage to each opponent. You gain 2 life. So that's 4 life loss to opponents, and you gain 2 life. That's insane. And then the +1 is also very nice as well, because you can just arrest kind of any creature you want, which could make teammates' attacks easier or prevent your teammate from getting clobbered. Next up, we have the Rakdos theme, which is, of course, going to be the Spectacle theme we talked about earlier. And what better place to start off there than Fireglass Mentor, right? Fireglass Mentor, very pinnacle card for this kind of archetype, where it's just like, if you've hurt your opponent, you get a benefit. In this case, at the beginning of your second main phase, if an opponent lost life this turn, you exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. Very efficient 2-drop that just draws you a card every turn if you are murdering your opponent. Azra Oddsmaker. This is also a very similar card. So you're going to notice a lot of card advantage for Rakdos when they're hitting their opponents. Azra Oddsmaker is one of them. And Azra really gets to dip into the well of Dimir infiltrator creatures in black to really make herself pop off more. And if your teammate's a Dimir infiltrator player, oh my God, you're just set. Because you just get to go, okay, I'm going to choose this creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may discard a card. If you do, choose a creature. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, you draw 2 cards. So it's a bit of risk reward where you get to go, this creature is going to do combat damage this turn, right? You can get blown out by a removal spell and you've just discarded a card for no reason. But with the right amount of like counter spellage, protection spells, stuff like that, you can guaranteed get this card draw every single turn, especially on an evasive creature, which the cube is full of. Theater of Horrors. This is once again another card advantage piece. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors, and then it has this kind of like buyout clause at the end where you can pay 4 mana to ping someone. So it is a 3 mana, like it's a Phyrexian Arena kind of enchantment, but in order to get access to the cards, you need to hit your opponents. Bile Smasher. Okay, now we've entered the first violent act of aggression card here. Bile Smasher just kills your opponent. Bile Smasher is really messed up in this 1v1 sort of environment. It's 4-player, but it's theoretically 1v1 because you have 1 life total across the table from you. But when you cast a spell, Bile Smasher just domes your opponent for that much, period. Like, looks at the mana value, your opponent gets hit for that much. It's ridiculous. It is a very strong card. It may be too strong. More analysis required on that one. Cardor Doomscourge is up next. This one's rather fun, because you get to, by goading all of your opponent's creatures and sending them into a bad attacking situation, you can really basically wrath their board. But also, whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's just perfect for this archetype, because that means even if you attack with a token and it gets blocked and dies, it doesn't matter. Like, each opponent loses 2 now, you gain 1. So they kind of want to let your tokens through. And this is especially true for your teammate as well. This looks across the table. If your teammate has an Adeline style creature, Adeline isn't actually in the cube, but a creature that makes attacking tokens, it's kind of dissuaded to block it, because if you block that attacking 1/1 creature that needs to attack, you're taking more damage from that token, which is a very interesting play pattern that I really like from Cardor. Lastly, of Rakdos, Lord of Riots. I've yet to see this guy do anything in this cube, but I hope and pray he's good enough because I love this card so much. You can't cast it unless an opponent lost life this turn, and it's really overstated. Black, black, red, red for a 6/6 flying trample. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So it basically gives all of your creatures spectacle, which is a very fun mechanic. Next up, we have Gruul. Gruul is a rampy strategy. So, of course, we're going to start here with Goblin and Archomancer that just makes all of your spells that are red or green cost 1 less to cast. It's a nice, efficient little dork, but practically a talisman for 2 colors. Very good for Gruul decks. Next up, we have Leyline Weaver. Now, this is the in-universe version of Spider Manifestation. We're going to see a few of these Omen Path cards throughout here, and the reason why is I just have them printed and proxied in paper because I find them funny. So Leyline Weaver is the first one of these where it's just like, it rewards you for casting big spells. You can cast a big spell and then you maybe use it to do a fight spell as well in the same turn, right? It's just a very efficient dork that I kind of enjoy. And reach is a very good word, especially when there's a lot of Dimir Infiltrator kind of decks running around. Stump Stomp. Stump Stomp is just a very versatile removal land drop. I like all the fixing I can fit in my cube, and typically I will err on the side of an MDFC being a spell rather than a land to help achieve that. So in this instance, Stump Stomp is being treated as a Gruul spell to fill out the Gruul space, because the Gruul space is kind of, let's face it, a little boring in my opinion. But also, in addition to filling out the Gruul 6-card multicolor slots, it's also serving as a fixing land. Now, Arbalest Engineers on the surface may look like a bad card. It is 1 red-green, choose 1. It's a 2/2. It can do 1 damage to any target, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature against trample and haste until end of turn, or you can create a tapped Power Stone. Now, most of the time you're going to be pinging or putting a counter on a creature and giving it trample or haste, and it's fun, right? You get to ping off a creature that was already dealt damage or a 1/1, right? Or you can put a buff on a teammate's creature or one of your own big creatures and give it haste and trample until end of turn. The Power Stone, it's a little bit more mid, but the rest of this card is pretty fun in Two-Headed Giant. This used to be Kessig Wolfrun. And I say used to be because Kessig Wolfrun used to be in this cube and it was just way too strong. Keep in mind, there is land destruction in this cube. There is ways to answer Kessig, but the 3 or so times we've drafted this cube so far, Kessig's just been dominant. It's been absolutely brutal. That card is messed up. So until the rest of the cube maybe elevates in power a little bit, Kessig's going to be on the side burner, despite being a very fun card. So this is a good side grade to that. Dire Strain Rampage. This one's a lot of fun for Two-Headed Giant. 1 red, green. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. If a land was destroyed this way, its controller may search the library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Otherwise, its controller may search the library for a basic land card, put on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. And then it has flashback for 3 red, green. So that's a lot of words. What does this translate into? 1, it's artifact and enchantment and land hate. If your opponent has like a scary land, like a Basilisk Gate, or a Rogue's Passage, or a scary artifact or enchantment, you can just blow it up. It does ramp them, but you can still just like deal with it. 2, you can ramp yourself. You can blow up your own land. For 3 mana, you've effectively harrowed. 3, you can ramp your teammate. If your teammate is mana screwed, if your teammate is pip screwed, if your teammate needs to ramp to play a really devastating play you can see in their hand earlier, you can ramp them with Dire Strain Rampage. Just blow up their land. So, also, why this is important to have as well, I'm going to highlight something with this card too. Artifact and enchantment removal on this card is very versatile, and that's going to be the case for every single enchantment and artifact removal spell in this entire cube. And the reason why is Two-Headed Giant is best of 1. So the removal being very flexible, being able to answer multiple types of things is crucial because there's no sideboarding. So there's not going to be a single disenchant in this cube. There's not going to be a single thing that's just destroy target artifact and enchantment without some more rules implications on top of it. Lastly, we have Nikia. Nikia I've already highlighted when we were going through the 2-color themes, but Nikia simply says you can't cast non-creature spells. Whenever you tap for land for mana, you tap for double. That's very fun. What this translates to is I am Gruul Stompy. I cannot cast spells. My teammate, though, oh boy, they have counter spells up the wazoo, right? So they get to counter all your spells. I get to make threats. And I basically have an extra teammate worth of mana on my side, even though I'm unable to interact in an efficient manner, which is a very fun and flexible play pattern. All right, next up we have Cutzel in Selesnya. Cutzel we kind of already went over. I really like the play pattern of my teammates get about to do something that's going to mess you up. Here, counter this Cutzel instead of my teammates' play. Right, once again, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. That is such a brutal line of text. And then also her second line of text, rewarding, buffing things with auras. Very fun. Next up is Satyr Enchanter. Very simple card, very straightforward, to the point. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. I've yet to get my hands on a Scythus, which is kind of crucial because the Orzhov life gain theme is going to be benefited by the Scythus gain 1 life on top of that. But I probably wouldn't cut Satyr Enchanter if I added Scythus. I'd probably cut a different Selesnya card. Strength of the Harvest, right? This is once again these MDFCs being good fixing as well as being good cards for the archetype. In Gruul, it was a removal spell for your large creature to kill their small creature. Here we have a way to pump your teammate's infiltrator creature or your own creature. So, interestingly, this enchanted creature buff does key off of your stuff. So when you've given out a ton of auras, you still control those auras, and you still control your creatures. So if you have 3 creatures, and you have 4 auras out there already that are all like ramp auras, and you cast this one on your teammate's infiltrator creature, it counts your things and not your teammate's things. So keep that in mind, but it is still very strong in that context where your teammate might have 1 unblockable creature and you just go, here you go, +6/+6. Unflinching Courage, Trample Lifelink. Here we see the Orzhov crossover a little bit harder. Not only does this make something into a brutal threat, it really prevents crackbacks if you are careful, insofar as like you can swing out kind of Alpha Strike every turn. And since you're gaining that life buffer, you can only be chipped down so far, but never to lethal. And once again, we have that life gain theme going through as well. Buried in the Garden. This one's a ton of fun. So 2 green-white enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent you don't control until it leaves the battlefield. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional mana of any one color. So this is a ramp spell that's like Fertile Ground, but it's also an Oblivion Ring, which is just hilarious. So you can stick this on your land, your teammate's land as usual with these ramp spells, but it also just comes with a little O-ring effect, which is nice. Lastly, we have Yenna. Yenna is a very fun card, and it's especially fun with auras where she gets to untap herself. Let's read the card really quick. 2 green-white for a 4/4 Elf Noble. Choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. If the token is an aura, untap Yenna, scry 2, activate only as a sorcery. So during your turn, you can copy all of your enchantments, which is, of course, just utterly brutal. Just back-breaking advantage here. All right, we're moving into Orzhov now, which is, of course, the life gain theme. But we're going to start off with the kind of a non-life gain card with Kaya's Guile. Kaya's Guile is 1 white-black for an instant, and you get to choose 2. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Exile all cards from each opponent's graveyard. Create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying, or gain 4 life. And you can entwine to get all of those effects for 3 more mana. So for 6 mana, you do all of those. Edicts are very strong in Two-Headed Giant because you have 2 opponents. So when each opponent sacrifices a creature, that card is effectively a 2-for-1, which should be the baseline a removal spell kind of checks. But this being that on top of Grave Hate, on top of a little flying creature that can wear auras, on top of gaining 4 life, getting your life gain triggers, right? Those are all very strong. Even when not entwined, this is just lets you pick the perfect 2 modes for you. Next up is Markov Purifier. This is just a nice insulated life gain card where it kind of just does everything a life gain deck wants to do. 1, it has lifelink. So even if your teammate doesn't have any incidental life gain and you don't, this can feed itself. Because at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. So now it's card advantage. It's card advantage, it's lifelinking. This is just the perfect Orzhov life gain card. Like, if all of them were like this, it'd be perfect. But sadly not. A lot of them are just payoff or setup, which is just not where you want to be with life gain. Next up is Kaya Ghost Assassin. This is a little bit more of a flicker card, honest to God, but it's just so much fun for Two-Headed Giant. It is 2 white-black for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker Kaya. The +0, so there's no plus ability on this. +0, exile Kaya Ghost Assassin or up to 1 target creature. Return that card to the battlefield under its own control at the beginning of your next upkeep. You lose 2 life. So what does this mean? You can play Kaya. You can +0 her to flicker a creature. You lose 2 life in the process. The -1, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Okay, great. That works. That gives you life gain. -2. Each opponent discards a card and you draw a card. So that's pretty brutal because you have 2 opponents, right? So they're losing 1 card each and then you're gaining 1 card. So that is a 3-card swing. That's very strong. And the +0 at the end of all those minuses can, instead of being used to flicker a creature, be used to reset Kaya. Where you can go, okay, great. My Kaya's at 1 loyalty now. I'm going to flicker my own Kaya, get her back into play. So very strong card, very fun, because also the +0 can just target any creature. You can get rid of a blocker, you can flicker your teammate's creature. So much fun. Next up, we have Cranus Horizon Splicer, which is a 5-mana 4/4. When it enters, you exile up to 1 target non-land permanent and up to 1 target non-land permanent card from a graveyard. Now, this is super cool because it's an Oblivion Ring for an opponent's thing. And also, you can rebuy something for yourself or your teammate or grave hate an opponent if you know Cranus isn't going anywhere. When Cranus dies, put him on the bottom of Azorius' library. If you do, return the exile cards to their owner's hands. Here's the thing. If you flicker Cranus with any of the white flicker spells, or you have an Azorius teammate that can do that for you, suddenly, oh man, that's interesting because you can go grave hate you, exile your creature, flicker Cranus. Those cards don't return to their owners. He comes back in and does it again. So that's super brutal. Another thing is if you do want the thing back, you can just sacrifice Cranus. You can send him into a bad combat. Chances are your opponent that you exiled from also wants their thing back in their hand. So suddenly, dink, graveyard to hand. Maybe they don't want the thing that you exiled more than the thing that you exiled from a graveyard. And suddenly Cranus just has unblockable. So very interesting card with a lot of play potential in Two-Headed Giant. Next up, we have Mr. Negative, aka with our Cocoon Keeper. 5 white black, Vigilance lifelink for 5/5. When it enters, you may exchange life totals with target opponent. If you lost life this way, draw that many cards. Once again, this just plays into the Orzhov life gain theme. If you've gained a ton of life this game, if you're only set up, you can get the payoff all at once here with Withar. It's also a good reanimation target if you end up getting some of those reanimation cards I was talking about kind of earlier. I had a game where I was playing this cube and I had Withar in a reanimation deck, and it was just so brutal because you discard Withar and they're like, well, we don't want to attack you anymore until we can kill you all at once. So Withar is a very interesting card with a lot of play potential in Two-Headed Giant. Next up is Revival Revenge. Revival is a unearth effect. You just get to return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. But Revenge for white black, double your life total. Target opponent loses half their life total rounded up. So you just have the enemy life total double yours. It's a nice big game finisher when Revival's kind of fallen off. And once again, fits the life gain theme. Moving on to Izzet. We have Glacial Dragon Hunt. This is just a very efficient removal spell. 2 mana Izzet sorcery. Blue-red. Draw a card, then you may discard a card. When you discard an online card this way, it does 3 damage to target creature. That's just pretty efficient removal. And then you can harmonize it, bring it back into play for 4 blue-red. So you can cast it from your graveyard, and you can tap a creature with power to reduce it by its power. This just kind of keeps the glue together in the Izzet theme of discarding. Can set up some fun flashback plays or reanimation plays if you're in Grixis. Next up is Broadside Barrage. It's just decent removal. It's murder with a draw discard sticked on it, basically. 1 blue-red instant does 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker, draw a card, then discard a card. Once again, just one of these glue cards. Very nice. Next up is Dak. Now, there isn't a lot of artifacts in the cube, but Dak is still very good as a loot engine because he says target player. Let's read this thing. 1 blue-red for a 3 loyalty planeswalker Dak. +1. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Beautiful. You can do that in yourself or your teammate. -2. Gain control of target artifact. Once again, not a lot of artifacts in this cube, but it'll come up maybe every so often. And then the -6 is really what's important, because if you end up plussing this thing for 4 turns in a row, or well, for 3 turns and then it lives to the 4th turn, you can -6 it to get the emblem, which is whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents, you gain control of those permanents, which is very strong. Next up, we have Prismari Command. Once again, I focus a lot on cards that have a lot of flexibility in their wording to help enable them for Two-Headed Giant, and Prismari Command is one of those cards. 1 blue-red, instant, choose 2. It deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards and then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token and then destroy target artifact, right? So all these modes are very teammate friendly, where you can go like, you draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, I'll make the treasure token. So you can unflood your teammate, or you can get the discard triggers, you can give your teammate the ramp with the treasure, you can ping something off the board that's annoying you. Tons of different flexible ways to use the Prismari Command. Next up, we already talked about Captain Howler. You can buff your teammate's creature with his ability and then get your card back whenever you discard a card. Lastly, we have Channeled Force here, which lets you turn your card advantage kind of into your teammate's card advantage or just hyper loot you. 2 blue-red. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you discard X cards. Target player draws X cards. Channeled Force deals X damage to up to one target creature or planeswalker. So you can just nuke something from orbit as well as give your teammate a ton of cards, give yourself a ton of cards, or target an opponent with when you have Nekusar in play and just kill them. So lots of different modes for this card to have. It is very narrow, the card, but it is definitely just fine to be running. Next up, we have Golgari with Deathrite Shaman. There's 4 times the number of graveyards to look at. So is there any wonder why Deathrite Shaman's very good in this cube? The Exile Instant or Sorcery mode also really helps any teammate that is on Rakdos aggro to help immediately trigger their Spectacle cards. Belby's up next. Belby's just hilarious. If you can deal any amount of damage to your opponents, you will get 4 mana on your second main phase, and so will your teammate. Since the life totals are shared, both of your opponents have lost life. Every single time they lose life or dealt damage. So what that translates to is, I swing with my Death Touch creature. Are you going to block it when I have Belby in play? The answer is probably yes, which sucks for you, because then that triggers all of my Morbid creatures, right? So this still does wrap back around to being a Morbid card, even though it does just turbo ramp you. Next up is Chevel. This guy's like the poster child for Morbid. Black-green, Death Touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls no permanents with bounty counters on them, you put a bounty counter on target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls with a bounty counter on it dies, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Great. This is just a 1/3 Death Toucher, makes ground attacks impossible, and then also gives you card advantage as you use your removal spells to trigger your other Morbid things. I'm going to kill that guy, Chevel says, and then you do it, you get a little belly pat, and then you get to also trigger all your other Morbid stuff. It's a lot of fun, good play pattern for this kind of archetype. Bracco is very similar. Bracco doesn't do anything with bounty counters, but whenever a creature an opponent controls with the greatest power among creatures that player controls dies, you draw a card and you put a counter on Bracco. Bracco isn't only just a trampler that wears Selesnya auras really well, he also generates so much card advantage in this cube. Almost too much, maybe. I have not play tested this card enough, but the one time it has been drafted, it is just taken over every single game it enters. Because here's the play pattern. You cast Bracco. If it isn't counterspelled, you now have a new round of priority. And what that means is you then go removal spell. They go removal spell on Bracco, and then you're still removing their thing. And if you've effectively like 2 for 2'd, which is definitely very good. And God forbid they don't have the removal spell, because all of a sudden you kill their creature, you get the trigger on Bracco. Uh-oh, your teammate kills their largest creature. Uh-oh, that's another trigger on Bracco. You've effectively gone 3 for 1 for that situation, which is just absurdly strong. So even in the worst case scenario, Bracco eats a removal spell, and you've also probably cast him alongside another removal spell you're running, in which case it's just completely card neutral. That's the bare minimum with Bracco, which is just like absurdly strong, especially when you have 2 opponents that he's looking at. Bracco, once again, is Kraven the Hunter from Spider-Man. This is the In Omen Path version. He should have been Chevel. This guy should have been a Chevel reprint in Arena. Like, why are we just making up a new bounty hunter when we already have one? Anyway, whatever. Moving on. No Spider-Man hate. This is a video for people to sleep to. Poison Tip Archer. This is just a very effective reach creature that also has Death Touch. This is just, once again, playing into the 2-headed giant rule that you can block for your teammate. And then it just has a nice little trigger whenever something dies. Whenever another creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life. That's stronger than Blood Artist, because Blood Artist says target. I'm very conscious in this cube about things that say each opponent, because they can get really strong really fast. Like Gutter Snipe would be way too strong for this cube. That's 4 damage per spell. Here, it's 2 damage per creature death, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But it is something you have to set up with intention, and your opponents can kind of play around it if they feel like you're a Golgari deck with the Poison Tip Archer. So it is a very strong card. I think this is the upper echelon of where I want each opponent cards to be, though. Lastly, we have Badlands Revival. This just kind of plays into the Golgari grinding sort of situations, so the late game grind fest they can kind of get into, which is, this is a 5-mana card, 3 black-green. return up to one target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then return up to one target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So this kind of enables a blue-black-green, a sort of bug reanimation strategy for Sultai, as well as just giving you options in, it would be, oh no, my brain's fried. Red, black, green, Jund reanimation would also really appreciate this. Blue and red, of course, being the best discard enablers, and this being a very good payoff for discarding a big monster, just being able to reanimate it. All right, moving on to Boros. This is our go wide aggro color, and we're going to start with something that makes you want to rather go tall instead. Legion Leadership. 1 and a Boros hybrid. Instant. Until end of turn, double target creature's power, and it gains first strike. So it effectively gives it double strike, but in a better way, more helpful way. And that can go on any target creature. And then the flip side is just a tap land for Boros. So just better fixing for Boros, as well as a decent combat trick that can go on you or your teammate's creature. Sky Knight Vanguard. This helps enable your battalion stuff. It's really just as simple as that. It's also a flying creature for Selesnya auras to put their stuff on, or to trigger Rakdos Spectacle, all sorts of things like that. Big thing about Sky Knight Vanguard, too, is it works really well with Spectacle and the way with Cardboard Doomscourge, where it's making that tapped and attacking soldier token that you now don't want to block. Tajik. Tajik is in this cube because there's a lot of red removal that's just like just deal 5 damage to target creature, but also Haste Mentor. These are 2 words that are very fun to have together because it means you get to just right away get that counter on a teammate's creature or your own smaller creature and get some value just the moment he hits the board. Very good aggressive card. Falahi Vanguard. This is very fun for Mentor because you play a creature, you pump a Mentor creature by +2/+0. And you can also put this buff anywhere. Whenever Falahi Vanguard or another creature enters under your control, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. That can go on your Mentor creature or your teammate's flyer, right? You can put that buff anywhere you want. So it's kind of like Impact Tremors in a way, where if you have an evasive creature, this is Perforos because the damage is going to get through. Next up is Firemane Avenger. This is the battalion creature we looked at earlier. This is my favorite battalion creature by far. Just super fun to get a lightning helix every single turn, and very, very brutal as well. And hey, that triggers life gain for Orzhov as well. Explosive Getaway is the last card, which doesn't really necessarily fit the Boros aggro theme, but it is certainly a very fun card to have in Two-Headed Giant. 5 mana, exile target artifact or creature, return to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. Explosive Getaway deals 4 damage to each creature. So this is a Wrath that does 4 damage to everything, but you get to save something. So you just go, teammate, your creature is very valuable to me. I'm going to exile it. Everything else blows up. That comes back, and then you're ahead. It's just a very nice card to reset the tempo if you're on the draw, let's say. Very important to have cards like that, even in aggressive. Novagen. Novagen Heart of Progress is a very silly card because it works for you or your teammate. You can tap to add a Colorless, or Simic tap, put a counter on each creature that entered this turn. If you have nothing better to do with your mana, which can happen, let's face it, we've all been flooded and limited before, you play Novagen, and your teammate plays a couple creatures, and you go, here's 2+1/+1 counters, teammate, and suddenly they have very good blockers that maybe buy you enough time to unflood. Next up, we have Hydroid Crisis. This also plays into the sort of green ramp theme, so you're able to ramp into this Hydroid Crisis very well by having green in your color identity, but also it has counters on it that you can proliferate up or move around with something like a Nesting Grounds. Just a very versatile, strong card. It's Flying Trampler as well, so you can help a Rakdos teammate out to get their Spectacle triggered because a Flying Trampler is going to get through, almost assuredly. Next up, we have Kior's Follower. This is just a little ramp dork. It has nothing to do with the counters theme basically at all, but it's very just, this is a good design for Two-Headed Giant. Green, blue, tap, untap another target permanent. What this translates to, you can untap their Arbor Elf to help them float more mana. You can untap a land to help them float more mana. You can untap their attacking creature to have a blocker. Like, there's just so much you can do with Kior's Follower, and since it looks at any permanents, not just your own, a lot of fun. Eutropia, the twice favored. So this is playing into the counters theme. 1 green, blue, legendary creature, human wizard. Whenever an enchantment enters under your control, you put a counter on a creature. That creature gains flying until end of turn. So blue actually has a decent number of enchantments. You can see them right here. There's 8 of them. But green is one of the core enchantment colors of this cube. And what that means is that Eutropia here is going to trigger quite frequently in a Simic deck, and that lets you put counters around, as Simic wants to do, but also give flying to Infiltrators or to Rakdos aggro creatures. Kiora. Kiora is once again just another card that says untap target permanent, and it's just some card draw if you're in the ramp theme. It being a Simic hybrid means as well, you also can just run this in Gruul, which would really appreciate an effect like this, because Gruul typically stacks up a bunch of enchantment auras on their lands and then untaps those lands for more mana. That's like the crucial way to ramp in this cube, or at least it's one of the main ways to ramp in this cube. There is other ways, but Kiora is a very good way to abuse that in either Simic or Gruul. Lastly, we have the Plaxclaster Frogling, which we looked at earlier, so I will not spend much time. All right, let's move on to 3-color now. This is our second part of this video, the 3-color choices. Now, I like to have a cycle, at least of either wedges or shards in cubes to help motivate 3-color play. So it's a nice little treat if you manage to get the mana working. And they're typically also going to be cards that are exemplary of one or more of their colors, as well as synergies. So by looking at a 3-color pair, you can get a lot of better idea of how the themes are coalescing with one another. And that's no mistake here. I have the full 10 cycle of wedges and shards, and I even have a 5-color. So let's move through these 3-color multicolor choices. First up, we have Falcospara Pact Weaver. This is 1 white, green, blue for a legendary creature bird demon with flying and trample. Falcospara enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. You can look at the top card of your library at any time, and you can cast spells from the top of your library by removing a counter from a creature you control in addition to paying its other cost. So what this translates to is Simic counters matter. The proliferation matters, and what this allows you to do is turn your counters into card advantage. On top of that, it's just a flying trampler that really helps a Rakdos teammate out. If you're in Bant, chances are your teammate's going to be more likely to be in Rakdos. So it kind of just fills in all of those niches very well for a Bant card. Another card I considered as well would be Lagrella the Magpie, which would help the Azorius Flicker theme more than the Simic counters theme, like Falco does here. So Falco helps Simic counters. Lagrella, which is a mass Oblivion ring for everything, would probably help more a Flicker theme. Next up, Esper with Tivit, Seller of Secrets. Tivit here is a 3 white, blue, black. You're all Commander players. You probably know what this card is. I'll read it anyway. Legendary creature, Sphinx Rogue. So 6 mana Sphinx Rogue and Esper. Flying Ward 3. Whenever Tivit enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player, starting with you, each player votes for evidence or bribery. For each evidence vote, investigate. For each bribery vote, create a treasure token. While voting, you may vote an additional time. Tivit is just a broken Magic the Gathering card. This card's so dumb, especially when you have a teammate voting with you. So this is very strong for the Azorius Flicker archetype. But as I've described before, I had a Reanimator deck in Esper, and I had Tivit, Seller of Secrets in that deck. And oh my god, is it broken in a Reanimator deck? Because you go reanimate it. Okay, great. I'll vote for treasure. My teammate votes with me. You're probably voting clues at that point. Surprise, I have 3 mana after that. So Tivit's a 3 mana play when you want him to be. And if you need card advantage, you can also just get 3 cards banked in the clue zone. But his major broken thing is with a teammate voting with you, he goes infinite with Deadeye Navigator. Peregrine Drake is also in this cube. We'll get into this more in mono blue. Peregrine Drake lets you untap your lands and your teammates' lands as well. So it's just a nice fair card. Fair. You can see the air quotes in that instance. But he also has a combo line in this cube, and Tivit's also there making Deadeye Navigator a combo card instead of just a fair Flicker card for your own stuff. Next up, we have Nekusar the Mindraiser, and this is a very fun one because it does support 2 archetypes very well. The first one it supports incredibly well is Izzet discard, even though it doesn't look like it. I'll read the card in a moment. And it also supports, though, Rakdos Spectacle. And the way it supports Rakdos Spectacle is if you can manage to force your opponent to draw a card on your turn, that triggers all your Spectacle stuff. And that's actually very easy to do in this cube. And speaking of forcing your opponents to draw cards, even though the Izzet discard theme is mostly about you discarding cards, there are a lot of cards in this cube that say target player draws then discards for Izzet discard, which makes Nekusar very deadly. Nekusar, you're all Commander players, you know what this card does, but I'll read it anyway once again. 2 in a Grixis, so 5 mana for a 2/4 zombie wizard. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar does 1 damage to that player. This also is just incredible burn because once again, you have 2 opponents. They draw a card. They draw a card off Nekusar. That's 4 life lost for 5 mana immediately after playing Nekusar. And it's not getting any better for them after that. Next up is Jund. Jund just has Mr. Orfeo the Boulder. This is mostly for Gruul ramp. Whenever you attack, double target creature's power until end of turn. 2/4. So you can target your teammate's creature, your creature, and Gruul Ramp's going to have the biggest creature on the board, but until you've ramped up into that thing, you can still buff your teammates double striker or flyer with Mr. Orfeo. It's very good. And Mr. Orfeo himself doesn't have to attack. You can attack with any creature, even like a little dork off of a token generator and get his trigger. So Mr. Orfeo is a very safe card as well because you don't have to swing with him himself. Next up, we're moving over to Naya, which is the Gahiji Honored one. This is mostly for Boros Go Wide aggro. 2 red, green, white for a 4/4 creature beast. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents or a planeswalker an opponent controls, that creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Great news! You have 2 opponents, your teammates attacking them alongside with you, so they also get Gahiji buff. Very fun card. Next up, we have Mathis the Friend Seeker. Mathis is a Mardu card, so just 3 mana for a 3/3 Menace Vampire. At the beginning of your end step, put a bounty counter on target creature an opponent controls. For as long as that creature has a bounty counter on it, it has when this creature dies, each opponent draws a card and gains 2 life. So this supports Orzhov life gain, mostly. But it can also help a Golgari deck if you are their teammate. Moving on is Genesis Ultimatum. This is also a Gruul ramp, Simic ramp kind of card. Just look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield, rest in your hand. It's just big, explosive value for anyone who can make the colors work. And you can make the colors work. The cube does have a decent amount of fixing. Gave Guru of Spores. 2 black, green, white. So this is a legendary creature, Fungus Shaman. Enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. Remove a counter and pay 1 mana from a creature you control. You can make a green Sapperling. And you can pay 1, sacrifice a creature to put a counter on a target creature. And it's a 0/0, but it enters as a 5/5 because it has 5 counters. So what you're able to do is just make a wide board of Sapperlings. If you have a Boros Go Wide teammate, you're able to sack those Sapperlings, put counters on Dimir Infiltrator teammate. Like, there's a lot of Gave combat math creature trickery that he does. You can trigger your Morbid stuff in Golgari very easily with Gave. Very versatile card, very strong card. Hanada Dawn Crowned. This is 1 blue, red, white for a legendary creature, Kirin Spirit, flying trample. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. So this effectively gives you and your teammate stuff ward. And it also makes your opponent's spells harder to play on each other, so they're ramp spells and stuff. This card's mostly meant for Izzet discard, believe it or not, as well as Azorius Flicker. Izzet discard, once again, has all these spells that say target creature or target player draws 2, then the discards do. And Azorius Flicker has, something like Disorder in the Court, which is an X flicker spell, exile X target creatures, return them, make that many clues. That's just white-blue now to do that. So Hanada's very strong. Also, Flying Trampler, once again, able to trigger Spectacle for your teammate. Sultai, Arkelos, Lagoon Mystic. So this was a lot of fun. It's a little dangerous, because last thing you want is to enable your opponent's tap lands. But you can also enable your teammate's tap lands. If your teammate has a tap land in their hand and they want to be able to make a play this turn, you can go Arkelos. They play the tap land. It enters untapped. They can tap out. I think of the 3 color options, Arkelos is probably my least favorite. But there's some cute things you can do with him. There's a couple tappers in the cube. So you can tap Arkelos down on your turn without having to attack with him. And then all of your opponent's creatures enter tapped and lands as well, which is very strong. Lastly, we have 5 color. We have the King of Group Hug, Kenrith himself. 5 mana for a 5/5 Human Noble. And he has all of these abilities, 1 for each color of magic, that lets you target any player or give all creatures something. So very versatile card and very friendly card. You're able to really help your teammate out with any of these, or just do it to yourself, of course. So that will end the 3 color choices section. We're now going to do what I want to call monocolor rundowns, because I'm not going to spend as much time on 70 cards each per monocolor as I did on the 70 in the multicolored section. I mostly here am going to be analyzing glue cards, which are just cards that help enable multiple archetypes, as well as standout cards that are my favorites as well. So starting with white here, we have a token generator and Descendant of Storms. This helps Boros go wide. Healer's Hawk, this is great for Selesnya auras or for Orzhov life gain. Hopeful Initiate, which is very good for the Boros aggro deck. Training also works. Mentor is not the only thing that works with counters and in combat. Hopeful Initiate's a thing as well that does this. And Hopeful Initiate's just very good for Boros to be running, because if you attack with your large Gruul rampy teammate, chances are you're going to be buffing the training creature. Soul Warden, this is for Orzhov life gain. This is the only like pure life gain card I would describe it as. And it's just because that Soul Warden does such a good job gaining life in a multiplayer format. Thraben Inspector, this just gives you a little bit of sack fodder, a nice little investigate token, and then it's just a good flicker target. Traveling Minister, this is incidental life gain and combat buffs, so this works really well with mentor creatures because you give a creature +1/+0, and then you just gain a life incidentally off that as well. Cathar Commando. This is our first example beyond Dire Strain Rampage of a flexible artifact enchantment creature removal spell. Cathar Commando is 1 and a white for a 3/1 flash, so you can flash it in as a blocker, deal 3 damage to an attacking creature, basically. That's very good already. That's like a baseline decent removal spell. But you can also sacrifice her to destroy target artifact or enchantment. So if there's an enchantment on the other side of the board, like an Oblivion Ring, you can gobble that up and get your creature back. Flipside Rescuer. 1 and a white for 2/2. Vigilance. Tap, sack. Target permanent you control gains protection from each of your opponents until end of turn. So it turns something into a true name nemesis until end of turn, which is just hilarious. I wish it did not say you control. I wish you could just do that to any permanent and just go, here, teammate, you have a true name nemesis creature now. So this one's a little bit clunky in my opinion because of that, but it's still overall just a fine card. It's very fun in multiplayer, of course, when you have 2 opponents who could block your creature and you just want to get it through. Containment Priest is a hate card for Reanimator strategies as well as for Blink strategies, and it also can turn your defensive Blink or your offensive Blink options into defensive removal spells. Lion Sash is up next. It's important to have Graveyard Hate, and this also does it while having a counter theme going alongside it. So if you have a Nesting Grounds, you can move your counters around to other creatures, stuff like that. Very important. Very good with Cutsil as well, of course. Graveyard Hate is a very important thing to keep track of in your cubes, especially if they're best of one like this one is. Next up is Metastatic Evangel, Proliferation, very fun in Two-Headed Giant where you can just proliferate everything. Nyxborn Unicorn is a very flexible mentor creature. Felia, it's my cube. Come on, you think Felia is not going to be in here? And it's also just very good, of course, in Two-Headed Giant where you can just flick your teammate stuff with it. Spirit of the Labyrinth. Okay, talking time. Spirit of the Labyrinth. Oh boy, those Izzet draw and then discard spells that can target any player have a new context now, don't they? Untap, upkeep, draw. Hang on, wait. On your draw step, I'm going to target you with Prismari Command opponent. Do you mind discarding 2 cards for me because you don't draw any? Also, I'll make a treasure token, right? There's so many of these effects in blue too. So Spirit of the Labyrinth can turn your Izzet discard friend into a machine that just mind twists your opponent. When we get to blue, you will see Narset Parter of Veils as well. Very similar idea. Nasty way to turn the Izzet discard theme on its head as their teammate or as the Izzet discard player themselves. Spirit Companion's up next. This is just a nice flicker card. And it also triggers Enchantresses. Squall Drifter. This is one of the tappers I was talking about. Tappers are just kind of valuable. It's a flyer to wear auras. It's a flyer to peck in through defenders. And then, of course, you can tap a teammate's Arcalos or something if they have that and you manage to assemble the funny combo. Beckoning Will-O-Wisp. This is 2 and a white for a flying creature. Lure the Unwary. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent. Creatures attacking the last chosen player get +1/+0. So the way that combat in Two-Headed Giant works is that this will just apply no matter what, because you're always attacking that opponent because they'll always be the defending player, even if you're like attacking their teammate. So at the end of the day, what this says, the Lure the Unwary doesn't matter. It just says creatures attacking your opponents get +1/+0. Which is just buffs across the board. Very good for Boros Go Wide. Yeah, that's about it, really. It's a Boros Go Wide card. Discerning Financier. This is the only card I could find that says choose another player instead of choose an opponent for its ability. So at the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands, you create a treasure, but then 2 and a white, choose another player. That player gains control of target treasure you control, you draw a card. So you don't have to give that to an opponent. Every other card like this says choose an opponent, they get it, and then you get a treat. This is the only one that lets you give stuff to your teammate. Elite Spellbinder is just very good hand disruption, and it's also just a flyer to wear auras. Fiend Hunter. Fiend Hunter lets you do a lot of funny tricks with flickering, like with an Ephemerate, or with Disorder in the Court, Hide on the Ceiling, with the Sacrifice Outlet, right? You can stack the triggers in the opposite order. It's one of the only creatures that is one of these effects that lets you do that to permanently exile creatures. Flicker Wisp. Very, very good card. It's basically a one-off of Felia, where you can just flicker your teammate's thing or your own thing. It'll come back. Hooray, value. Heliod's Pilgrim is mostly for Selesnya, which puts a heavy emphasis on auras. So having an aura tutor that can also be just flickerable for more value is a very strong card to be having in a aura deck. Inspiring Overseer, just very good flicker bait, incidental life gain for Orzhov. Lorna of the Third Path, this is a very good flicker card because it lets you destroy an artifact or enchantment on entry, but also it's just a little bit of a card advantage engine, especially if you have Spirit of the Labyrinth out or Narset out. You're able just to shut off that card draw for your opponent, and you can just draw a card every turn. Midnight Guard. Now, Midnight Guard is a combo piece. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, untap Midnight Guard. This combos with the enchantment in green Presence of Gaunt to make infinite green elves. Because you tap the Midnight Guard to put an elf into play, you then get to untap the Midnight Guard to tap him again. So you have infinite green elves now. But he also combos with a couple other enchantments that are a lot of fun. For instance, there is Karametra's Favor, which turns him into a mana dork. So whenever you or your teammate play a creature, your mana dork untaps, which is just a lot of fun. And then he's just a decent blocker, right? You can swing in with the Midnight Guard, and then your teammate plays a creature, and then it untaps your Midnight Guard. Like, that's just cute enough to be like a little bit of a D tier pick if you don't have the combo. Next up is Proud Pack Rhino. This just either proliferates or puts a shield counter on any permanent, including your teammates. It's also just good to flicker, of course, for those reasons. Sanguine Evangelist is for Boros Go Wide. Battle Cry is a stupid ability, and it also just creates tokens for you as well. Savior of Allenbach. This card is messed up. I first encountered this card in Frank Lepore's Horror Cube. So 1 white for a 1/2 human soldier with training. Very good for Boros Go Wide. Or just any white deck who has a large creature-based teammate. Whenever it trains, exile up to 1 target creature from the battlefield or for a card from a creature card from a graveyard. And then when it leaves, you put the exiled cards back onto the battlefield under their owner's control. So you can reanimate you and your teammates' creatures with this card. And also, you can exile, like, Fiend Hunter your opponent's creatures, which is ridiculously strong. Also, wait, no, hang on, wait. This is worded like Fiend Hunter. I just realized this right now. So if you swing with Savior with a teammate's creature, and then you go Ephemerate the Savior, the second trigger goes on the stack, and then the first trigger resolves. So you don't give them their creature back. Oh my gosh, that's gnarly. I love this card more and more. This is a sleeper for cubes. This is a very good white card. Welcoming Vampire, just like, it's very good for weenies. And also just very good for flicker. Turning all of your creatures into cantrips is just so broken, and white has a lot of small creatures that can do that. Werefox Bodyguard, this one's a lot of fun because it is a protection spell. 1 white. Flash, when it enters, you Oblivion Ring something. And you can pay 1 and a white to sacrifice it, gain 2 life, incidental life gain for Orzhov. So you can flicker your teammate's creature for 5 mana, your own creature for 5 mana, or you can protect an important creature from removal as well for 5 mana. This is super, super viable, very flexible. It's also just a removal spell. Area Auxiliary. This is a bit of a space filler card, but it is just kind of nice to go like 4 mana, 2 counters over here on your creatures that care about counters, and I can flicker this in future as well. It's a flying creature that can get through for my Dimir Infiltrator Rakdos opponent. Also wears auras really well, right? It just kind of does a lot of things very decently. All Fate Stalker. This is very similar to Werefox Bodyguard in that it's a flicker spell the first time around, warp 1 and a white, flicker your thing. Second time around, it's an actual Fiend Hunter. It doesn't have flash, so it makes it a little less versatile, but it does let you get a ton of value as a white player. Angel of Condemnation. This is another flicker card. Very similar to a Felia Vein kind of card. 2 white, Flying Vigilance. 2 white, tap, exile another target creature, and then it comes back on the end step. Or 2 white, tap, exert it, exile another target creature until it leaves the battlefield. So it becomes a Fiend Hunter. And what's really funny is if you have one of these cards, like the Kiora or Kiora's Follower on your Simic teammate, they can just untap you through Exert, and you can just keep Fiend Huntering your opponent's things, which is ridiculously strong. This card's so much fun to play with. Exemplar of Light. Whenever you gain life, put a counter on this creature. And then what I like about this card is that it's broken up. So if you have a Simic counter friend, you can just get the card draw from the second ability without even being a life gain deck. Whenever one or more counters are put on a creature, on this creature, draw a card. It only triggers once each turn. And then your Simic teammate can proliferate you, right? So even without like the life gain, it fits well in life gain, but even if you don't run into your life gain, you can still get benefits from a counter teammate and have this giant flying beater. Kyodai is a flash protection spell that's also just attached to a 3/3 flyer. So just flash it in. Another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control it. Doesn't have to be your own permanent. That's what I love about it. Odric, Master Tactician. This is just like the god battalion creature because you just go, no blocks for you guys, explode. Incredibly strong, immediate must answer. Sarah Paragon lets you just replay little cheap guys that have died over the course of the game, and it's incidental life gain when they leave the battlefield the second time. Vitality Hunter. This is just a pure life gain creature. This is my little treat to the Orzhov enjoyers. And it also puts counters on things, which is not negligible because Nesting Grounds is in the cube. So it's totally possible to move those lifelink counters around and have a lot of fun with it. But it's mostly for Orzhov life gain. Boonbringer Valkyrie. This is our first backup creature, and I love backup. Backup's such a fun mechanic. 3, white, backup 1, flying first strike lifelink. Backup just means you can put a +1/+1 counter on a creature in play. When you do, they gain all of the rest of the abilities of the card until end of turn. So you put a counter on something else, you make it a Baneslayer Angel in addition to getting a Baneslayer Angel. Perfect for Orzhov life gain, but also very good for Dimir Infiltrators or Rakdos. You gave their creature flying and lifelink and first strike. It's not going to get blocked. Guardian the Gateless. This is a very fun card in a multiplayer context. It can block any number of creatures. So you just slam this guy down and you basically you put up a wall versus most attackers because it also just has flying. Sigardus Vanguard. This card's a lot of fun because it lets you give any creatures double strike, not just your own. And that's on defense or offense. And it also plays really fun with a teammate who has a bunch of counter synergy because you can change all the powers of your creatures so you can buff the most creatures with double strike. When it enters or attacks, choose any number of creatures with different powers. Those creatures gain double strike until end of turn, right? So very deadly lethal card if you manage to set it up correctly. Next up is Skyboon Evangelist, and this is just Area Auxiliary's older brother. You support 6 when it enters, and whenever a creature with a counter on it attacks one of your opponents, all of you and your teammates' creatures do that, they gain flying. So very good for evasive strategies, as well as just counter strategies. Adhikar Valkyrie is another one of these protection things that let you just, so long as it's alive, you can't kill any of the other things because they're just going to come back. Aegis Angel's also very similar. It's another Kyodai. So we have 3 Kyodais across white here, which is just very fun to see those maximally because it's super fun to give your teammates creature indestructible, especially if it's just a Death Toucher. Who's blocking that thing? Harmonious Archon. This is a lot of fun for the Auras gamers as well as the +1/+1 counter gamers. All creatures are 3/3s that are not Archons, and then you also make 2/1/1 white ones, so you can flicker it as well. So everything becomes a 3/3, but your things with auras and counters are bigger than their things, which is just really good, which means you win every combat, so long as this is in play. Victory's Herald. Attacking creatures gain flying and lifelink when it attacks. Very good, because your teammate attacks with you. Angel of the Ruins. This is a giant reanimator beater. It's mostly just plain cycling, so you can get fixing from this, but on top of that, it just being incidental exile artifacts or enchantments is very nice for a best of 1 format, and it puts itself in your graveyard, so you can reanimate it if that's what you're doing. Iona. Okay, listen. I'm an Iona apologist, but especially 2-headed giant, Iona's a lot of fun. Because what it does is it shuts off someone, yes. Most of the time you're 2-color. Maybe leaning more into 1 color, you name that color, they're kind of shut off. They still have their teammate who could maybe answer the Iona for them. The teamwork that Iona brings out is a lot of fun in 2-headed giant, whereas maybe in Commander, that is slightly more problematic. Slightly, I guess, it should be unbanned, but regardless, not here to rage bait. Bazriket. This is a fun planeswalker. I try to make sure that every color at least had 1 planeswalker. Some have more, some have less. Not less than 1, sorry. Some have more. Bazriket, 1 white. You can put a counter on up to 1 target creature, any target creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn, so you can crash out. -2, whenever 1 or more non-token creatures attack this turn, you create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. Great news! That doesn't say attacking creatures you control. So if your teammate has 4 creatures and you minus Basri, you just get 4 tapped and attacking 1/1s, board in a cannon instantaneously. So much fun. And the -6, you're never going to get there. Let's just not even read it. Getaway Glamour. This is just a flicker card that's also a removal spell. Very versatile. Very important to have versatility in a best of 1 format. Path to Exile. Very good removal spell, but also can be used on a teammate's token to ramp them if they're getting screwed or flooded. Or not flooded, but screwed or pip screwed. Cauldron Haze. This is a recent addition. I'm put it in the white category because I needed to fill out white cards. So there you go. Don't let Cube restrict you too hard. You know, you can be flexible with this stuff. So Cauldron Haze, any number of target creatures gain persist until end of turn. You just go, all my creatures gain persist. Here's a board wipe, says the teammate, right? You can set up a play like that. So it's very fun that you can target you or your teammates' creatures. And then what you can do is if you have a +1/+1 counter gamer at the table, they just go, okay, great. +1/+1 counters on all these creatures. Remove the -1/-1 counters. Very funny. Long Road Home. This is just a nice flicker spell that can do your or your teammate's creature and just put a counter on it. There's a lot of creatures we'll see, and especially the other colors that care about having counters put on them. Parting Gust. Once again, versatile. You can exile an opponent's thing, or you can flicker something. Unexpectedly Absent is just a very versatile removal spell. You can tuck any non-land permanent into its owner's library or just put it directly on top of their library, making them skip their next draw. So if an opponent's flooded, you just go, put that creature on top of your library. Sorry, bud. You're not drawing another land this turn. It's effectively a time walk. It can be very brutal. This card's very good. Even in Commander, honest to God, this card's very strong and should probably be on your radar. Valor Stance. I like the modality here of removal spell and protection spell. I think some amount of protection spells make limited a lot of fun. And when they're versatile like this, they become easier to run. Make Your Move. This is another example of this versatile talking. It's a best of 1 format, so you can't really main deck hard, only artifact and enchantment removal. So the fact that this also hits a creature with power 4 or greater makes it flexible enough to run. It's just basically white murder at that point, especially in the late game. Requisition Raid. Requisition Raid. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. That's just such a good line of text, in addition to being a wear tear, right? You can destroy target artifact and destroy target enchantment. Mythos of Snapdax. Okay, this is where we get really cute. Tragic Arrogance is the same thing. So I'm going to read Tragic Arrogance, and we can kind of get an idea here. These cards do the same thing. It's just you need Mardu mana for Mythos to work at its peak. For each player, you choose from among the permanents that player controls an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker. Then each player sacrifices all other non-land permanents they control. So normally what this translates to in 1v1 or in Commander is I pick all my best stuff, I pick all your worst stuff. But with a teammate, you pick all your best stuff, you pick all of your teammates' best stuff, you pick all of your opponent's worst stuff. So it's really one-sided instead of just kind of one-sided. It is a brutal card to play in Two-Headed Giant. Play of the game, this is just a nice board resetter. Exile all non-land permanents and your teammate can help pay for it because it is 8 mana. All right, moving on to the enchantments. This is a very important theme for white-green, so let's read through these. Journey to Nowhere is just a nice little cheap Oblivion Ring for a creature only. Grasp of Fate lets you hit both of your opponents and Oblivion Ring their stuff. Griffin Guide is a very strong aura. It gives flying, and then when it dies, you get a Griffin to replace the aura. +2/+2 and flying is no joke, especially on a little infiltrator creature that gets value every time it hits you. Prison Realm is an Oblivion Ring that scries one. There's been a lot of top deck manipulation, just like incidental scrying and stuff. Like also on top of that, Unexpectedly Absent, right? You put something on top. The reason for this is because I have a little pet card in here called Predict, which lets you name a card and then you mill an opponent's top card and then you draw 2 cards if you named the correct card. Otherwise, you draw a card. So far, no one's like normal predicted, but Predict has been drafted twice and there have been multiple blind predicts, which is just comedy when you blind predict someone and draw 2. But anyway, moving on. Touch the Spirit Realm. This is a flicker spell or O-Ring. A lot of O-Rings in white. And it's mostly because O-Rings are just very versatile removal spells. I'm trying to keep the removal as versatile as possible so you don't get blown out by anything. Everything is answerable. Twinblade Blessing. Okay, here's our first like kind of major aura after Griffin Guide. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has double strike, flash. So you can just flash this in on your teammate's creature and then just have them brutalize your opponent. Unquestioned Authority gains protection from creatures, the creature you enchant, and it also draws you a card on entry. Lastly, we have Chosen by Valgavoth. Now, Chosen by Valgavoth is with great power on the Spider-Man set. This aura lets you enchant a creature you control which isn't my favorite line of text. This would probably be maybe better as Pariah, but I do like that it is a mask, Ancestral Mask for white. That part I like more than Pariah, but I dislike more than Pariah that it only enchants a creature you control. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it, and then all damage that would be dealt to you, which includes teammate damage dealt to your teammate because you share life total, is dealt to the enchanted creature instead. And we have all these indestructible granters once again. We have like 3 of them. So you can end up with a Pariah lockout combo until you answer either one or the other. Lastly, you have Invasion of Theros, which lets you tutor for an enchantment, and then it's an enchantress on the back when you flip the battle. All right, that ends us with white. So let's move on to blue here. Blue has a couple of these creatures now that we're going to see, which is whenever one of our counters are put on it, draw a card, then discard a card. This supports the discard theme. It supports counters theme. It's just a good creature card to have around. Hypnotic Siren is a enchantment to trigger enchantresses, but also Hypnotic Siren is an early game beater that lets you trigger your Rakdos Spectacle teammates stuff. You can put Curiosities on this thing, right? It just does a lot for you. Lantern Bearer, flip sides an aura, lets you enchant a creature and give it flying. Very valuable aura to be packing, as well as just an early game evasive beater, which blue-black appreciates. Trickster Mage, this is for discarding, but it lets you untap or tap target artifact, creature, or land, so you can upkeep, tap an opponent's land with an aura on it, untap your teammate's land with an aura on it, while discarding a big monster to reanimate later, perhaps. Or just triggering Captain Howler, right? Trickster Mage does a lot of these things very well, being just a twiddle spell shaper. Ghostly Pilferer, this is just a discard outlet, but also is an infiltrator. Very nice. Gobin Fleam, which is Green Goblin. Very good setup and payoff for a blue-red discard deck. Of course, it rewards you the most for going Grixis, but it is just a very strong card, able to grow it with counters as well, which has some nesting grounds potential. A lot of fun. Ledger Shredder, you have 2 players. Each are going to cast maybe 1 or 2 spells. So this kind of like maybe rule of laws your opponents while making you and your teammate rewarded for double spelling. Looter Ilkor, just similar to Gobin. It's just very good for the Dimir archetype. Malcolm, once again, another looter. So we have 3 looters, or 4 looters even. Kind of chilling out here at 2 mana value. Aether Channeler. Good flicker target, can make a 1/1 white flyer for your evasive matters teammate, can bounce something, or can just draw you a card. Very flexible flicker target. Arcane Artisan's just very fun to have. This is from Original Battle Bond that lets you show and tell for a player. So you can do that for yourself or your large Gruul rampy teammate or what have you. Very strong, very good card, especially with ETBs, because when Arcane Artisan dies, she does take everything she brought into play with her. But if you already got the ETB value, who cares? Gilded Scuttler, this is just for Dimir Infiltrator once again, but also it's a good flicker target because you get to tap something and put a stun counter on it. And hey, that works for Simic counters too because you're proliferating that stun counter. Kiora is very good for discard, but also very good for any sort of deck that is interested in flickering as well because it's a very good card to flicker. So good for white-blue, good for blue-red. Obscure Alley Lickers, this is for blue-red once again with all these other looters, but also is a flash play, so you can hold up counter magic or interaction in a more controlling deck versus these other looters, besides Malcolm, that are sorcery speed only. Reckless Scholar, this is once again for red-blue discard, and it lets you unflood a teammate or something. True Name Nemesis, this is also from Original Battle Bond, believe it or not. I believe this was originally printed in Battle Bond. No, it was originally in C13, but it was reprinted in Battle Bond. True Name Nemesis is a very good card for this format because you get to go, opponent with the most creatures, you don't get to block me. Only you're my other opponent, you get to block True Name Nemesis, and they have a bunch of value creatures they don't want to block with. So it really does put a prisoner's dilemma on them. Next up, Vigian Graph Mage. This is just one of those graph creatures, but also it lets you untap the creature that has a +1/+1 counter. And this can go infinite very easily. If your teammate has one of the land untappers that untaps any land, you have a land with an aura on it that lets you tap for one of any color. You can go 1 in a blue, Vigian Graph Mage, your creature. They go untap your land with the untapper creature. You can make infinite mana if that land taps for 3 mana, which is very strong. It's a fun thing to have available. Speaking of land untappers, Vizier of Tumbling Sands. You can do it yourself in blue, even if you don't have green. Well, actually, you do need the green auras to pump up a land to be able to tap for that much. But you can Vizier of Tumbling Sands, untap another target permanent, This is just another Kiora's follower kind of effect, which is just very fun to have in Two-Headed Giant. And then you can also cycle it, which works with the discard theme for red-blue. And when you do that, you also get a twiddle. Cephalid Broker. This is 2 Reckless Scholars stitched together. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Brutal with Spirit of the Labyrinth. Brutal with Narset. Tidal Barracuda. This is one of the first cards that legitimately makes me want to belly laugh and like literally sob cry laughing. In Two-Headed Giant, this card's a beast. 3 and a blue. Any player may cast spells as though they had flash, but your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. What this means is sure, your opponents might be able to flash some stuff in during combat during their turn, or flash in stuff during their upkeep, or draw step if you're doing the Narset lockout thing. But for all intents and purposes, what this says is you and your teammates' things have flash, and your opponents get like a little treat because they get flashed in a kind of unhelpful way. So, whoa, brutal card in this cube. Tidal Barracuda. It also just lets you tap, pay 4 mana. Here's my Tidal Barracuda. My teammate is just going to pass the turn. And it's just like, okay, you go to remove my Tidal Barracuda, go and hit him with that teammate, and then you just like cast like a 7-drop that just like brutalizes you in your life. Oh my god, nasty. So no matter what, you're getting a little bit of trickery out of this because they're going to try and remove it, and then they didn't use the removal spell on the Drakuseth that your mono red teammate played, right? All right, Vazin. Vazin's very fun. This is Chameleon, I believe, from Spider-Man. And Vazin just has Mayhem, which works really cutely with the discard theme. And a clone's kind of fun to have, you know, having 2 Cephalid Brokers sit around, something like that. Constrictor Sage. This is just a very good card. It lets you 2-for-1 stall an opponent's aggression. And it also puts counters on things to proliferate for green-blue. Peregrine Drake, I talked about this a bit. This goes infinite with the Deadeye Navigator we're about to go over soon. And also, it lets you untap all of your teammates' lands to basically let them have double mana this turn. And you still get a 2-3 out of the deal. It's also just incredible to flicker, even in a non-combo sense. Like, an Ephemerate in this is a ritual for you and your teammate. Curator of Destinies, this is just a nice flicker target. It just factor fictions. It gives the opponent something to talk about, like, oh no, we should divide the piles like this. It's kind of fun for them to debate. Deadeye Navigator, very strong card for Azorius Flicker, but also just a very strong combo piece. It does both. Horned Lock Whale, the owner of target attacking creature you don't control puts it on the top or the bottom of their library. And then it's also just a flash creature, so you can hold up, do a little bit of a more controlling game plan. And this also works with Predict if they put it on top. Takashima's Protege can enter as a copy of any creature that enters the battlefield this turn, including your teammates' creatures that enter the battlefield this turn. So you don't have to rely on the Cascade as much, even though the Cascade is nice additional value. Lastly, Diluvian Primordial. You have 2 opponents, so you get 2 spells. You flicker it, you get more spells. Who doesn't love that? All right, 2 Planeswalkers. Narset, I've already explained why she's really good. She works with the Izzet discard theme. Jace Beleren, though, each player draws a card, target player draws a card, and then you're never getting to the -10. So let's not even read it. So just being able to go like minus you draw a card, minus you draw a card, teammate, minus I draw a card, that works out pretty beautifully. But you can also +2 it if you're the Nekuzar deck, right? That can help enable your Rakdos Spectacle cards because you're going to be the one probably running the Nekuzar if you have Jace in your deck as well. So just a very good card, especially politically with your teammate. Spectral Restitching, very strong card. I literally had Disorder in the court already, and then this got spoiled in Spider-Man, and it's just another version of that card. Like, why not both? Especially since I believe Archaeomancer's in this cube. No, it isn't. Maybe I should put Archaeomancer. See, like, you're learning stuff live with me here. Because Archaeomancer is fun with multi-blinks. Call to Heal. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Its controller draws a card. So you can do this on your teammate's creature. They draw a card. They return their ETB creature to their hand. But you can also do it to an opponent and then punish them for drawing. Which, once again, is just so many draw. There's just a decent number of draw punishing in this cube, so. Experimental Augury, this is our first proliferate card, but it also just digs 3 deep. So it's a slightly worse impulse, even if you don't care about counters, though. And then it also just proliferates if you do care about counters. Mana Leak, it's just a decent counterspell that isn't as strong as counterspell. Honestly, Mana Leak might be too strong for this cube. I might consider running Mirror Shell Crab or something. Memory Lapse, this is for Predict, and it's also just a very strong counterspell. Like, do not sleep on this card at all. Very good tempo play. Predict, I talked about how Predict's my pet card. Literally just with the card before it as well it works with. Runaway Together, this card's brutal in multiplayer. You can either bounce a teammate's ETB creature and an opponent's creature, or you can just bounce 2 opponent creatures, just rushing tempo. Second Guess, this is a counterspell that's so much fun in Two-Headed Giant, because typically what you want to do is you want to bait out counter magic with the first play you do. And then when you don't counter it, they go, they don't have the counterspell. Teammate, go ahead. They play the second spell. You second guess it. Counter target spell if it's the second spell that was cast this turn. That doesn't mean that it was cast by that player. It tracks all players, which is just so funny for Two-Headed Giant. Snap. This lets you, of course, bounce something, but also untap lands for your teammate. Frantic Search. Discard Theme. Reanimator works with this really well. Also lets you untap a teammate's lands or your lands. Thirst for Discovery. Draw 3, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a basic land card. Perfect. Great. Just a nice discard enabler. Unravel. It's just a cancel with upside. There's a little bit of cost reduction in the cube, and I want to be able to punish that. So Unravel is currently the counterspell choice, but that will probably change in future. This is a very flexible slot. You find the villain's lair. This is not a flexible slot. This is a cancel, but it also lets you Faithless Looting. Draw 2, discard 2, if you decide to do that instead. Very valuable. Comparative Analysis. This is a Surge card. You may cast it for its Surge cost. If you or a teammate has cast another spell this turn, this is a mechanic we'll see again, but the Surge cost reduces it by 1 mana. Target player draws 2 cards. Very good on your teammate or yourself. Out of Bounds. Assist. Counter target spell. Just an assist counter spell. Very nice. And then Overwhelming Denial. This is a Surge counter spell. If your teammate casts a spell this turn, or you cast another spell this turn, you can just blue counter target spell. All right, moving on to sorceries. We have Portent, which works with Predict, but you can also unscrew a teammate's draws. Serum Visions. This is also for Predict. You draw a card, then you get to scry 2. And it's just also just a good cantrip that enables Surge and stuff. Mass Diminish is fun because you have 2 opponents, so you kind of have to pick whose board is scarier, and then shrink it, and then it flashes back later. Compulsive Research can target. It's just sorcery speed. That's the only downside. But you can have your teammate, draw a few cards. Crowstorm. Storm works in this so funnily because Storm counts every spell that was cast this turn, not just spells you've cast. So if your teammate went spell, and you went spell Crowstorm, you'd get 4 crows out of Crowstorm, which is, of course, just very strong. Huddle Up, just more card advantage. 2 target players each draw a card. Your teammate can help pay for it as well. Winter Night Stories. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a creature cards, and then you can harmonize it back into play. Very good discard engine for Reanimator or Izzet. Modify Memory. This one's a ton of fun in Two-Headed Giant. 4 and a blue. Exchange control of 2 target creatures controlled by different players. If you control neither creature, draw 3 cards. So if you swap a teammate's creature for an opponent's creature, you draw 3 cards. Or maybe you just trade away a token that you control, and you just get a little bit of a mind control effect. Either way, very good play, very strong. Cinder Split's Judgment. This is a card I've actually considered cutting, because sometimes there's so much ETB in this cube that sometimes this harms you. 4 and a blue. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend creates a token. Each foe returns a creature they control to their owner's hand. You don't get to choose that creature. So they can go pick up my Flame Tongue Kavu. I'm going to remove another thing now, right? So sometimes this just hurts the cast. It's actually not that good of a feeling card most of the time. And typically, I want my cards to feel fun to play in cube, which this one doesn't do a lot of the time because of that exact reason. All right, we have a bit of a blue board wipe here with Crush of Tentacles. 4 blue, but you can play it for 1 less for its Surge cost. If someone else has cast a spell this turn, return all 9-land permanents to their owner's hands. And then if its Surge cost was paid, you make an 8/8. Very brutal tempo play. Mind's Desire, yet another Storm card. You shuffle, and then you get to reveal Storm number of cards from the top of your library and then free cast them. Very, very strong. River's Rebuke. Cyclonic Rift would be a bit too strong for this cube, I feel, or anything else like it. I do run Mizium Mortars, but if you get big enough, you can outscale the Mortars. Whereas River's Rebuke here, you just choose who has the more threatening board and return it. So it kind of punishes having a split strategy where like one player's more control, one player's more aggro, because the aggro player gets blown out by a River's Rebuke if the control player ever taps out of counter magic. Lastly, Stolen Identity. This is for, one, you just get to clone anything. With 3 other players, clones get so much more fun. But also, you can cipher this onto a Dimir Infiltrator, which is just very strong to have this be a rider. Aether Spellbomb. It's just nice, flexible removal. Atomic Microsizer. This is a fun equipment. It has a lot of different modes that I'll go through right now. 1 blue mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. Whenever equipped creature attacks, choose up to 1 target creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn and has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. Okay, great. What does this mean? You can make your own creature unblockable, and then it's a 2/1 unblockable. You can choose a blocker and shrink it down into a 1/1. Second main phase, if they don't block with it, your Gruul teammate can like ping it with the Arbalest Engineers, right? Or you can microsize a teammate's creature that's also attacking, right? So you equip this to your flyer, and then you swing it, and then you microsize your teammate's attacking creature with an attack trigger on it. That's fun. So it's a lot of different modality here going on with the microsizer. Cryogen Relic, this is just a good flicker card. If you have anything that flickers an artifact, like a Felia or a Flicker Wisp, you just get to draw a lot of cards off of this. And then it also works with the counter theme, where you get to put a stun counter on a tapped creature. Very versatile. Moving on to enchantments for blue, we have Crow Shatter. This is just removal. Curiosity. This just goes on an Infiltrator to draw you some cards. It can also go on a teammate's creature as well. Eel Umbra, a nice flash protection spell that can go on your creature or your teammate's creature, and it can also be a combat trick to help give that +1/+1 to win combat. Omen of the Sea, this is for predict, but also it's just Constellation triggers, a nice little cantrip, good for controlling kind of strategies that want to hold up a flash thing. Amphibian Downpour, once again, another storm card, but this one's storm removal. And it also triggers Constellation that many times, which is nothing to scoff at. It's definitely something that can happen. Induced Amnesia, this is for Nekusar. 2 and a blue, enters the battlefield. Target player exiles all cards in their hand face down, then draws that many. And then when it's graveyarded, you return the exiled cards to their owner's hand. But what this also translates to is your teammate's hand is bad. Here, teammate, draw a new hand. Also, on top of that, Narset, you can just Mind Twist an opponent. Spirit of the Labyrinth, you can Mind Twist an opponent. Oh, another thing, then what you can do is flicker this with a Felia, flicker this with a Flicker Wisp, and then, oh, the hand goes back to my teammate that I let draw a million cards. It comes back. I have myself redraw my hand. So there's a lot of modality here with the Induced Amnesia. Also, this is 2 separate triggers, so I don't know if there's a way to instant speed trigger it first, but you can have the first thing trigger first if you can somehow get rid of this permanent, which I don't know if you can in this cube, but it's something to think about for future editions, where you go like, flicker this after the ETB goes on the stack, and then you're just Mind Twisted, period. Shadow of the Second Sun. Now, this works very curiously in Intuitive Giant. For blue, at the beginning of Enchanted Player's post-combat main phase, there's an additional beginning phase after this phase, so you get to untap, upkeep, and draw before your end step. And besides being funny with Tidal Barracuda, you and your teammate get this. And the reason why is because of the shared turn rules. When additional phases are added to a turn, both players get that additional phase. And also, extra turns work like that too. There's no extra turns in the cube currently, but if I ever added them, the extra turn would be for the entire team. This also works for additional combat phases as well. Dismiss into Dream. So this is 7 mana. Each creature your opponents control is an illusion in addition to its other types, and gains when this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. So you tap out 7 for this. What does your teammate do? Your teammate goes, tap on my Wandering Minstrel. My Traveling Minister, rather. Target creature gets +0/+1 until end of turn. You gain 1 life. Activate only as a sorcery. The backup creatures all become lethal threats that are all Ravenous Chupacabras. Because if you back up onto a teammate's creature, they die. Sigardus Vanguard. Choose any number of creatures with different powers. They die, right? So this turns all of these cooperative mechanics into kill spells for your opponents. On top of that, it stifles Selesnya auras and Simic counters as themes for your opponents until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. Once again, really highlighting here that versatile removal is very important for this cube. So you can remove the Dismiss into Dream and not just be stuck with no sideboards or anything. All right, we're moving on to black now. Thornblade Berserker, just a nice backup creature that lets your teammate sack a token or something to draw a card, or you can just do it on your own creature. Citrus Supplier is just for self-mill. Thrall Parasite lets you remove counters, also especially from adapt creatures, to help enable plays, but it's also an extorting creature for Incidental Life Gain for Orzhov. So this works not only with a Simic teammate or any teammate that cares about counters, but it also works with life gain teammates. Vampire the Dire Moon, Incidental Life Gain. It's a bit of an infiltrator because who wants to block a Death Toucher? Blight Beetle. This is just a hater card. There's so many things that have to do with counters in this cube. Blight Beetle just says, no, stop it. Quit. No counters for you, all the counters for me. So very good to have this in the cube. Blood Artist, a very good card in multiplayer format. I think hopefully if you've played any amount of Magic, you know that Blood Artist is just very good in multiplayer Magic. And it's no different here, especially when you only have 1 life total, but still the multiplayer number of creatures in play. Brain Maggot, this is just a nice enchantment enabler, as it is an enchantment creature, but also Brain Maggot lets you Thoughtseize an opponent. which maybe lets your teammate free them. And then you really have to make a value call on which opponent you're going to Thoughtseize. Deep Cavern Bat, same thing, but it also has lifelink to enable life gain for Orzhov. Desperate Bloodseeker, it's a nice self-milled card for Golgari, but also it has lifelink for Orzhov. Guildsworn Prowler. This is just a nice little aristocratic creature. It's a death touch blocker for Golgari that care about Morbid, but also it's a nice infiltrator for attacking focused Dimir decks, right? It just does a lot for you. Knight of Just Shadow, Menace, your opponents can't gain life. This is just another hater card. Black has most of the hater cards in this cube. Just like little hate bears that stifle opponents' plays while your teammate gets ahead because you've managed to stop your opponents from doing what they want to do. But besides that, it does have Menace, which is a valuable word in this for Rakdos aggro. And it can pump itself as well, making it even harder to block. Here's our first like pure life gain card. We have Luis, Pompous Pillager. X black lifelink, enters with X counters on him, and then he does X damage to target opponent, and then you gain that much life. So this is nice for the Orzhov deck, of course, but you can also be turbo ramped by a helpful red-green ally with a bunch of untappers and land auras and other ramp spells like that, and then just like X's 10 someone and kill them. Oathsworn Vampire, when you may cast it from your graveyard if you gain life this turn. I'm not sure about this card entirely. I like the design a lot, but I am unsure if it will stay in the cube or not. I think it's kind of fun with like a Soul Sister where you just get the sack fodder every turn. There's a couple sack matters cards throughout the cube, so it's kind of fun to have a fodder piece that works with life gain. Order of Midnight, this is nice for Golgari graveyard decks, but also very good for Dimir Infiltrators because it's just a flyer too. So it serves double duty. It's a very flexible card. Vampire Gourmand, whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, this can't be blocked this turn, Dimir Infiltrators, and you also draw a card. Very good wearer of auras and whatnot. Virus Beetle, this is a very valuable piece of very good thing to flicker, where each of your opponents discards a card. That's effectively drawing a card in my mind when you've managed to make two opponents discard a card. And then you flicker it, and you reanimate it, and it's like, ooh, it can get really nasty. Faller's Faithful, this is a very fun card. It lets you village rights for your teammate, or it lets you kill an opponent's creature. 2 and a black, when this creature enters, destroy up to one target creature. If that creature wasn't damaged this turn, its controller draws 2 cards. So if your teammate just has a token laying around, you can just go 2 and a black, draw 2 cards, bud. Here you go, get unflooded. All right, now here's where we get into the most fun card for black, in my opinion, or at least the second most fun card. Gix, Yawgmoth Praetor. 1 black, whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, draw a card. Your opponents can't capitalize on this, but you and your teammate can. All of your creatures are now curiositied, which is just ridiculously strong. And then, of course, it has the discard clause to steal off the top of someone's library. Very fun to steal in a limited event. Gumdrop Poisoners next is just a good life gain payoff and also life gain enabler, all in one package. I love it when life gain cards do this, when they are the enabler and payoff all in one. Insatiable Skittermaw, this is meant for Golgari Morbid. It's just kind of a creature that grows over time, but it also has Menace, so it's very good for Rakdos as well. Mogis' Marauder, X creatures gain Intimidate, where X is your devotion to black. This, of course, works with Dismiss into Dream, as mentioned earlier. But also, Mogis' Marauder is very, very good with a Boros Go Wide teammate or a Rakdos aggro teammate, and you just go, all right, these creatures gain Intimidate. They're a lot harder to block now. Morbid Opportunist, just very good. Something's dying every turn. It's a multiplayer format. Phyrexian Rager. Ta-da, just a nice little flicker boy. It really doesn't need to be more complicated than that. This is just a nice curve filler, as well as being a flicker target. Consuming Aetherborn, backup 1 lifelink. Beautiful tempo swing on this card, as well as just being good for the Orzhov life gain deck. Gaunty Night Minister. This is probably the most fun card in black. It's like Gix, where you and your teammate get to profit off of it. It turns all of your creatures into Ragavans, and then your opponents just don't get to do anything about it. By the way, how this works with the shared life total is when you hit an opponent and you have to pick an opponent for it to affect, you can choose either one of them. You don't have to declare who you're attacking per se. It's a lot more just like you are both the defending player. Damage is dealt. I choose you for the damage to be dealt to. It still affects the life totals the same, everything like that. So it works exactly how you want, basically. Scorvus is just another good Morbid card. If a creature died this turn, do something. Vindictive Lich, this is a good sack fodder, but also it's just fun to choose 2 modes for your opponents to suffer with. Archpriest of Shadows, backup, Death Touch. This is just a nice reanimation card to help get value out of the graveyard. And you can even have your teammate reanimate something instead of you. Fetid Gargantua, this is one of these cards that care about having counters put on them. So you get to Night's Whisper, draw 2 cards, lose 2 life whenever a counter's put on this thing. And then you can adapt it for 2 and a black. So that's a lot of fun. A lot of counter manipulation there too, where you can flicker this card to reset it and then adapt it again if you have no other way to enable counters. Titan Hunter. At the beginning of each player's end step, if no creatures died this turn, Titan Hunter does 4 damage to that player. So I've been killed by this card in this cube before, where this does 8 damage on your end step if nothing died. You can also pay 1 in a black, sacrifice a creature, you gain 4 life. So that works for Orzhov life gain. But I had an opponent who was super far ahead. He played this. He passed. We attacked and alpha striked them. They didn't block anything. They already had a ton of life off of this creature. End step, no creature died this turn. We took 8 damage and lost the game. Right? So brutal card if you cannot manage to fulfill its requirement. Witch of the Moors is a very good engine for life gain decks. Just each opponent sacrifices a creature. That's effectively where you want your removal spells to be. But also, you get to return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. And it's just a Death Toucher, so very good blocker. Calculating Lich, very good for Rakdos aggro. Just like unavoidable damage is the name of the game for that deck. So here we have unavoidable damage. You and your teammates attacking creatures each drain for 1 when they attack. Kothafed. Kothafed's in this cube for Golgari Morbid, but I like Kothafed a bit more than a Harvester of Souls, just because he sees your teammates like enchantment and artifact removal, right? So you're able to get a bit more value out of Kothafed. And he's also just a big flyer, too. Flying is a very good keyword in Limited. New Scraft Mob. This is actually taken from Battle Bond as well. I took a lot of inspiration from the Battle Bond set, because, of course, that's what introduced Two-Headed Giant in a way. And here you have, it enters with 5 counters. Whenever a player casts a spell, including your teammate, you get to remove a counter. If you do, make a black zombie. And then your teammate can proliferate it back up, or you can back up onto it, or etc. Like, it's just very fun, flexible, interesting counters card, and also very good for go-wide strategies. Noxious Gearhulk, very good flicker card, but it's also life gain. Removal, life gain. I mean, this is just perfect for so many different archetypes. Lorcan. This is a lot of fun. Normally how Lorcan works is you would cast him and then maybe snuff something out, maybe slaughter pack something, get paid life for those creatures, and then, then you get some value going. But here's the thing. In this cube, you can just tap out for Lorcan, and your red teammate can just go red removal spell, and then you pay the life for those creatures to put them into play. So the tempo hit of tapping out for a 7-drop does not matter that much in Two-Headed Giant as it would in other formats. So you're able to have these big, bombastic plays like Lorcan that your teammate can then capitalize for you off of. Chefet Archfiend, I just like a creature that can entomb itself. This is a nice little board wipe as well that cleans up dorks. It's a little flyer. It's a cute card if you have no better reanimation targets, or it's a nice secondary reanimation target if you don't find your first. Next up is Ob Nixilis the Hate Twisted. This is a draw punisher, much like Nekusar. And it's also just removal, and you can also use it on your teammate's creature to go ahead and let them draw 2 cards. You can Village Rites for them again. Very good card, especially in this format where it's at least going to get 2 damage off on your opponents and also let you draw a couple cards somewhere. Instance, we have Ulcerate. This is just good removal, especially for Orzhov life gain that can very easily hop through the you lose 3 life hoop. Like, you don't really care about that. Maximum Overdrive. Once again, I really enjoy protection spells, but this protection spell also giving a counter and also being a combat trick is just very valuable across the board. Very big fan of this card. Dark Dabbling, you can regenerate your teammate's creature. This is much like Cauldron Haze in a way, where you can regenerate a teammate's creature, you draw a card, and then you can regenerate all of your creatures in case it's a board wipe sort of situation. Because that first part of the card is not regenerate target creature you control. Saw in Half. Oh my god, this card's so gross in this cube. It's quite literally the most broken card you could be running in this cube in my mind, where ETBs are plentiful. Battlecry, like having 2 Battlecry creatures is better than having 1. Having 2 Battalion creatures is better than 1, so it works really good with the Boros. Like, I think Saw in Half is honest to god first pickable in this cube. It just works with so much stuff that's going on here. Sudden Spoiling, this is a very good way to blow out one opponent, but not both. I'm very partial to those kinds of cards. It's a lot of fun to not have a Plague Wind, but more have a effect that you have to selectively choose which opponent's more of an issue instead of just winning. And this can turn into a win very easily, of course, but it's a lot more thought-provoking than just like all creatures opponents control gain 0-2 until end of turn. Tribute to Hunger, this is removal and life gain. That's like basically all I wanted for Orzhov, is for the life gain setup cards to be at least somewhat versatile, so you can run them outside of Orzhov, or they're good independent of life gain triggers or life gain payoffs. Live or Die, this is just a reanimation spell, but it's also a kill spell. Very versatile. I wanted Reanimator to be in the cube in some capacity, but not be smothering, where like there's only cards in the cube that are only meant for Reanimator. Like, all the Reanimator cards are very flexible and usable by other archetypes. Curtain's Call, destroy 2 target creatures. This is on par with removal spell. It's 4 mana, destroy 2 things. That's basically the same in this format as 2 mana, destroy 1 thing. Because, once again, 2 opponents. Very important that you have removal that can answer multiple things. Sorceries, Disturbing Plot. This lets you target your teammates' creatures as well. So you can return a creature from your graveyard to your hand or your teammate's graveyard to their hand. Exhume, talked about Exhume earlier. It's kind of fun when you can set it up with your teammate and your opponents don't know about it. Feed the Swarm, once again, versatile removal. Being able to hit that Dismiss into Dream your opponent just played. Very important. And also the modality of it hitting creatures as well. Very good. Murderous Compulsion. This is so if your teammate targets you with the discard card, you can Madness. It's a bit of fun. Sign in Blood. Sign in Blood, just any target player draws 2, loses 2. This is good with draw punishers. It's good by targeting your teammate. Strategic Betrayal. It's Grave Hate and removal. Grave Hate's very important. So I want to have Grave Hate on a flexible spell, so even if the Grave Hate doesn't matter, you still get to remove something. Atrocious Experiment. Target player mills 2 cards, draws 2 cards, then loses 2 life. It's the same thing as Sign in Blood, but it sets up graveyards a little bit better. Play Essence. Exile target creature Planeswalker. You can gain life equal to the number of counters on it. Just punishing counter gamers in black. Once again, black is the color of hater cards, and this is one of those. Painful Truths. Most of the time, you're going to be in 2 or 3 colors. So if you have a treasure token laying around, or if you're 3 colors, you just get to draw 3. Nice little reward for those kinds of decks. Risky Shortcut. This card's a lot of fun in Two-Headed Giant, and this is, honest to God, one of the cards that got released in Aether Drift, and I was like, you know what? It's time I make a Two-Headed Giant cube, because this is so much fun. Risky Shortcut. 2 and a black. Draw 2 cards. Each player loses 2 life. What is this? This is Flame Rift. It does 4 damage to each team, and you draw 2 cards. Very silly. Virtuous Removal. Unlike Zyndersplit's Judgment, this actually always feels good to cast. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend returns a creature from graveyard to hand, and each foe sacrifices a creature. So it always feels good to play this. Wicked Pact. You lose 5 life, but you get to destroy 2 target non-black creatures. Arms of Hadar. Once again, just living up to this. I like answering one opponent's board, but not both at the same time. Creatures target player controls get -2/-2 until end of turn. Very strong. No One Left Behind. It's a reanimation spell, but it also can be cheaper if you reanimate a small little dork, so it's good for sacrificing kind of strategies. Unburial Rights. This is a pure reanimator card, but it's okay to have a couple narrow cards like that throughout the cube. Villainous Wrath. Change the printing, because I have this printing in paper. Aha, there we go. A little bit of maintenance live on air there. Villainous Wrath. 3 black. Target opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures they control, and then you destroy every single creature. So I just wanted a couple Wraths in the cube, and I think that this one kind of fits the bill the best because it helps finish the game off if you need that in Rakdos Sack. So in Rakdos Sack, if you're on the draw, you have a Wrath to reset the board and reestablish tempo. But also, if you have the play and you've been aggroing your opponent all game, you can just go die. You just lose life equal to the number of creatures you control. That's the last of your life total you lose. So very good on the draw or play, Villainous Wrath. That's what I liked about it the most. Writ of Return. This is a reanimator spell, but it also works with Dimir Infiltrators and looting. So if you put this on a looter, you can loot away a big creature and reanimate it simultaneously all at once. Not in the same turn, of course, but you can set up a reanimation on that looter and then Writ of Return, return one of the big creatures you discarded earlier, attack, return a second one. Hex, destroy 6 target creatures. This is so valuable in multiplayer where you have 2 opponents and they're probably gonna have 6 creatures between them. And if they don't, you have to blow up one of your teammates' creatures as well, because you need 6 targets for Hex to work. You can't do less. You can't do more. It needs to be 6. Peer into the Abyss. This is really funny on your teammate, of course, or yourself, but you can also just thermonuclear bomb an opponent with Nekusar. This is a combo. I think it happened as early as turn 5 in one of the drafts we had. Someone had like Nekusar and Ob Nixilis in play, and then his green teammate went, here's Magus of the Candelabra, untap all your lands, you can tap them again, and then just like killed someone on turn 5 with Peer into the Abyss, which is just so silly. I'm so happy these stories come out of my cube. Requiem Monolith is a very good card for this cube, 2 and a black. Until end of turn, target creature gains. When this creature's dealt damage, you draw that many cards and lose that much life. That player's creature's controller may have this artifact deal 1 damage to it. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is a Phyrexian Arena that you can put on yourself or your teammate to draw a card instantly, and then draw a card in future. And then that creature's kind of unblockable because who wants to block that and give you 3 cards? But also, if your teammate has a lot of the red removal in this cube, like Flame Slash that does 4 damage to target creature, you can go tap, put it on your creature, oh, I'm at a low life total, I don't want to draw, so I won't have it do 1 damage to me, but my teammate then flame slashes that creature and makes the flame slash go face and kill you. Retribution of the Ancients is a nice way to turn counters into removal, and it also resets, of course, evolve creatures, or rather adapt creatures, excuse me. So very decent card there. Nowhere to run, just removes Hexproof and Shroud from opposing things, and then is also just a good removal spell to flicker with Felia or Flicker Wisp. Curse of Shallow Graves. This card works exactly how you want it to, and it's so messed up, and if it continues to be as messed up as it's been so far, it might get cut from the cube. It's legitimately so strong that you and your teammate make a 2/2 every turn for just attacking your opponent, and then you can just keep attacking them with those zombies as well. Duskmourn's Claim. This card's so fun in two-headed giant cube. So this is Parker luck. So you can choose you and your teammate, and both of you can Dark Confidant. You can choose both of your opponents, and they can both Dark Confidant, or you can do a split of anything of their end. So you can Hyperburn your opponents. You can draw for you and your teammate, or you can just like play it safe and do 1 each if you are at a low life total. At the end of the day, though, this card does so much damage if you're in the right matchup. That does it for black, though. Let's move on to red. Red, I chose Bloodlust Insider and Goblin Motivator. These just can give any creature haste, including your teammates. Hired Claw is a good card for the Rakdos aggro archetype because it always gets damage through. Voldaren Epicure is a very similar thing, but also it works in the blue-red discard theme. Cam and Ferric Havoc Duo. This is a discard payoff, flying haste, so it also works in Rakdos Spectacle. But when you discard cards, hey-oh, it gets huge. I think this is Hobgoblin. Cheering Fanatic, this is from Battle Bond, so of course it's going in this cube. It's just a lot of fun to swing this thing and go, hey, look, I'm going to name my teammate's card. Like, turn 3, I swing with this. Flame Tongue Kavu, you're sweating. Like, you're terrified. You're about to get your thing removed. Feldon, good, just aggressive creature. It's a bit of a flex slot here. I think what I like about this most is just turning red removal into, like, you can just cycle a red removal card with this in play. And it's also just very hard to block, and if you do block it, you get value. And if you don't block it, I get value because I have Fireglass Mentor, right? So either way, it's a losing proposition. Goblin Instigator, this is good for Boros Go Wide. Simple, plain as that. Goblin War Driver, Boros Go Wide. Pathmaker Initiate. This is meant for Dimir Infiltrators to support them if you are their red teammate. Although this is about to change into Goblin Tunneler because there's a Goblin theme throughout red, which we'll get into in a moment. Rix Mahdi Reveler. See how this has Spectacle, but I put it in mono red. This is just because I like Rakdos more than any other color combo. Sorry, everyone else. But you can still play this in red, and it's decent. But if you Spectacle it, it's even better. Just get to refill your hand. Ear Slicer Goblin. Very good for the aggressive archetypes for Dimir, etc. Shock Brigade. It's a nice Goblin sack fodder creator. Why does sack fodder matter all this time? We have Gut True Soul Zealot. It's such a broken card. 4/1 Menace. Tapped an attacking skeleton, and you sack like a Thraben Inspector token or a, the mobilized creature here. Very strong. And Crop Crasher. It's just a nice haste, aggressive creature. This is a kind of a flex slot. Death Greeter's Champion backup with Double Strike, and you get to dash it to do it again every single turn. Brutal card. Wow, backup so strong, and this is probably the strongest backup card in this cube beyond the Angel. Ember Beast is very fun. This is not a flex slot despite looking like one. It can't attack or block alone, but I just like how that plays with having a teammate that can attack or block with you. Goblin Matron, so you can find Gut, you can find all these other goblins we're about to run into. Just very strong for that narrow mono-red goblins archetype that I wanted to support. Hearthborn Battler. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, it does 2 damage to target opponent. So this, once again, it rule laws your opponents unless they want to get shot in the head for 2. And you and your teammate can do 4 damage together on your turn if you guys can both double spell. Magmakin Artillerist, just very good for supporting Rakdos as well as Izzet. Hashlik Mons, very good for supporting Rakdos, but also the Red Goblins theme. Firewild Shaman, this is very good for Rakdos. If you block my creature, I combat trick, pump it. Your creature now dies, and then I get to return it later. It's good sack fodder. It's a goblin. Overall, it's a bit flexible. If I had found a better goblin for this slot, I would probably put it in. Daggercaster, this is very good with Death Touch enabling. There's a couple of that in the cube, but most of all, it's just for sweeping tokens or to flicker. Flame Tongue Kavu, just stupid removal. Very good tempo play, and it's also good to flicker. Frontier Warmonger, you and your teammates' creatures gain menace. What more is there to say? This is just so much fun intuitive giant cube. Goblin Freerunner is just a small, low-to-the-ground menace creature. Because your teammate casts a 2-drop, you can cast this 3/2 menace as a 2-drop instead of a 4-drop because of Surge. Renko's Brothers Crusher, this is a big land answerer, but it also fixes mana for your teammate if they are screwed. Cavalier Flame. Enters, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards, and then it does damage to each opponent and planeswalker with the controller X number of land cards in your graveyard. And then what this means is if you've counteracted flooding a lot all game, Cavalier Flame can just dome someone super hard. And it's also just very good to flicker for your Azorius teammate for you. Flame Rush Rider. Whenever it attacks, put a token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, that's a copy of another target attacking creature, not that you control. So if you have a rampy teammate with a large creature, you can copy their creature. And it has dash for 2 red. Frenzied Saddle Brute. You and your teammates' creatures can attack as though they had haste. Beautiful. Just perfect. Flawless card for Two-Headed Giant. Gruul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. This works exactly how you want to, much like combat damage matters creatures like Gonti. You are always the defending player. Your opponents can't cheese it by choosing to attack your opponent instead. If they're attacking your opponent, they're also attacking you. Pay 3 or get a 3/3 Ogre. Pinnacle Monk is good for saw in half kind of funny strategies. It's evil that I have Pinnacle Monk in here, but not Archaeomancer. I need to rectify that immediately. Siege Gang Commander. Just enters, makes 3 goblins. You can sacrifice goblins to ping things. That works really well for Rakdos aggro, of course, because you can just ping them in the head. You have basically get 3 shocks, 4 shocks even. And it also works if you have a good flicker teammate that can flicker this and give you a lot of value. Boros Go Wide loves this card. And then it's also good for the goblin team. Like, it's literally like a perfect, like, quint synergistic card. Thunderhead Gunner, honestly, it's like in here because it supports the discard theme, kind of. It has reach. This is a bit of a flex slot. If I found a better card, I'd probably replace this one. Fiendish Duo doubles damage to opponents from all sources, including your teammates. So Fiendish Duo, also just kind of fitting. Fiendish Duo, it's 2-headed giant cube. You're a duo. It's fun. I'm probably never, ever going to cut this card. Mana Charge Dragon. This has joined forces. Flying Trample 5/5 for 6. When it attacks or blocks, each player may pay any amount of mana, and then it gets +X+O, where X is the total amount paid this way. So your teammate can fire breathe this dragon for you, which I just think is so cute. Even though it's a little bit weak, it's just so cute. Territorial Bruntar. This is for the land strategy and Gruul, but honestly, I could take it or leave it. It's nice that it's a 6/6 reacher. So bare minimum, it's a very good blocker for you and your teammate. So it plays with your teammate in that way. But besides that, it's mostly kind of selfish, which I don't really appreciate. I kind of like these cards to be maximizing the teammate aspect. And the only thing that does that on this card is reach. So maybe someday it'll be replaced, but it is just a good card for red as well. Drakuseth, stupid card. Very good for removal, especially if you give it haste. Molten Primordial, similarly, it can just steal opponents' creatures and then swing them and kill them. Very good card, especially to flicker or reanimate for before schedule. All right, our Planeswalker for red is Tibalt. This is for Rakdos, but it also hates on Orzhov life gain opponents. I don't know if they need much hating, to be honest, but it's there. And the Red Devil, of course, is just a very good thing to enable Spectacle. Expedite, give a creature haste, draw a card. Need I explain why that's good in this cube? Abrade, just versatile removal. Faithless Salvaging for discard. Sasscap's Brew, which can make your opponent draw cards because of the way it's worded to avoid fizzling. So what's really funny about this card, additional cost, discard a card, target player draws 2 cards, and then if the gift was promised, target creature you control gets +2/+0 until an end turn. So because it gives target creature you control +2/+0 if the gift was promised, they have it say target player draws 2 cards. So that way, if that creature is removed, the spell doesn't fizzle. But what that translates to is you can just have your teammate draw 2 cards by discarding this card and another card. And then it's also just a fun combat trick. Overwhelming Surge, very, very good card. Very good for versatile removal. Savage Alliance, versatile removal, but also can give your teammates large creatures trample until end of turn. Seize Opportunity, it can cycle itself, or you can combat trick it. It's honestly a bit of a flex slot. The red instants here are a little bit meager, in my opinion, mostly, but Mind Collapse, just removal. Chain Lightning, just removal. Faithless Looting is good for the discard theme. Flame Slash, just removal. Strangle, just removal. Like, notice how many of these are just removal. Like, it's fine to just have removal, but I would like them to be a bit more synergistic in future. Avacyn's Judgment is synergistic with discard, right? Because you can Madness to turn it into a fireball instead of just having it deal 1 or 2 damage to 1 or 2 target creatures. Cleansing Wildfire, this can help you fix a teammate or answer an opponent's land. Grab the Prize. This lets you deal 4 damage to your opponents if you discard a non-land card and then you draw 2 cards. So it's very good for Rakdos aggro. Mizium Mortars is good early game, good late game, but not too late game, which is what I like about it. Is if you outscale this card, it's pretty... the brutality kind of falls off really hard. But in the mid game, Mizium Mortars is nasty. Twin Moth Stormbird. Yeah, this is a mono red card, guys. It's 5 and a white for a flying dragon that gains 5 life for 5/4, but it's mostly used for Charring Bite. So the 6 mana drop is for your Orzhov teammate to gain some life if you can only use that side of the card, but the other side of the card is good for a red deck. Ren's Resolve, just nice card advantage. Really not much more to that. Light of the Stage is nice card advantage, but it has Spectacle, so it's a little bit more on theme. Chain Reaction, just a nice red board wipe. Hate Mirage, it's there. I don't know. It's kind of just a filler card in my opinion. I'm not a really big fan of Hate Mirage here, rather. Mob Verdict is funny. So you and your teammate can vote whose board is more problematic in terms of opponents, but also you can just stack it all in one guy to do 4 damage to that player twice, or do 2 damage to that player twice, and then also each creature that player controls. They're just, your opponents votes don't matter. They just vote for your teammate and then they do nothing. You don't draw a card. But for Mob Verdict, you just go vote for you, vote for you. You can also just turn this into Red Divination and draw 2 cards if you just have you and your teammate vote for you. Throes of Chaos, very, very fun card. I mean, there's not much else to be said about it. It's just fun to cascade. It's a nice filler card. Red doesn't really have a lot of team-oriented cards, believe it or not. They're mostly oriented around killing your opponent immediately. So Throes of Chaos is a nice thing to increase the silly factor of red. Mass Hysteria, all creatures have haste. Beautiful. Just flawless for this cube. You play this, all of the creatures that were played this turn get haste. Brutal. Sticky Fingers, creature gets menace, any creature. And then when it dies, you make a treasure token. And you also draw a card. Or, excuse me, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this is good for Rakdos aggro, but it's also good for just fixing. Gruul ramp, right? Bitter Reunion, discard theme, but also you can sacrifice it to give creatures you control haste until end of turn. It's a little bit of a filler card in my opinion, but it's not bad. Dragon's Breath can come back whenever any creature of mana value 6 or greater enters and attach itself to that creature. So that translates into is early game, you give any creature haste for 2 mana. That creature dies. Late game, your teammate or you play something big, you can attach to that creature and give it haste. Very fun. Pain for All, very good for Rakdos aggro again. It's also just removal. It's a bite spell, but then also you swing with that creature. What are they going to do? Block it to avoid the damage? They can't. Invasion of Mercadia is for the discard theme, but then it flips into a nice Boros aggro card, or Boros go wide card that makes elemental tokens. Creatures you control get +1/+1 gain haste until end turn. And there's Evasion of Karsus, which is very good for Rakdos, where, well, it's a board wipe for a more controlling red deck, and then it flips into a murder card. Ward, pay 2 life, and whenever you cast a spell, it does 2 damage to each opponent, which translates to 4 damage to their life total. Yuck. All right, lastly, well, not lastly, we're going to go through colorless really quick, but we have green. We have Dork. Magus of the Candelabra, which can untap your aura'd up lands or your teammates' lands to ramp them. Nyxborn Hydra, which is just a good payoff for you or your teammates' creature. It gives it trample and +X. And then it dies into a giant Hydra that still has trample and reach. Wasteland Viper is good for Golgari, but it's also just a good combat trick. It's a good blocker. It kind of just fills all those niches very nicely. Basking Broodscale, it's one of these creatures that triggers when it gets a counter on it. There's no Broodscale combo in the cube as far as I'm aware, but it's here. Tinkerbloom, it's versatile removal. It's also proliferate on a body. That's really all you need to know, is that, once again, just value versatile artifact enchantment removal, and this being a proliferate on top of all that is very handy for Simic decks that don't need the artifact or enchantment removal in a matchup. Elvish Archivist draws you cards whenever enchantments enter, and then gets bigger when artifacts enter. You're going to see a few of these enchantresses. I'll just kind of flag them, but they're just valuable to have in any cube with a Selesnya or even just like blue-green enchantment theme. Portent Tracker, ignore the choose target battle. That's almost never going to come up. Sometimes it does, but you can untap target land or tap. Scavenging Ooze, just Grave Hate. It grows. Hooray. Scrounging Bandar. It's also incidental life gain, actually. Scavenging Ooze, you gain 1 life, so Orzhov can get a little treat. Your Orzhov teammate. Scrounging Badgar. It is pretty bad, but it's a fine, cute little card with proliferation effects. 1 green, enters with 2 counters, and then on your upkeep you can move counters around from it onto other things, which can trigger stuff like the Fetid Gargantua. Thornwheeled Archer, reach Death Touch. Just stops your opponent's combat unless they have a creature that they don't really particularly care about dying. So, very nice reach Death Touch blocker. Has a new context into it, a giant cube where it can defend you and your teammate from 2 separate attackers. Twitching Doll. This is more for, it's a dork. It's for Delirium, honestly, because I'm pretty sure I put Traverse in this. No, I didn't. Okay, wow. So no, it's just kind of a flex slot, I suppose, then. Could take or leave a Twitching Doll. There's a lot of untapping, though. That is something to be said. Voyaging Satyr. Just untap target land on a 2-mana drop is very good. And then we're immediately into Blossom Dread, which does the same thing for 1 more mana, but gets 1 more power. Champion of Flamebolt. This card is stupid. Yeah, that's about it. Like, just, this is a very dumb counters payoff. I wish it worked with your teammate, but sadly it is a little bit selfish. That's the only drawback with this card. Eternal Witness. This is very good with Saw in half, right? You saw Eternal Witness in half. You get to buy the Saw in half back. Once again, I should probably get Archaeomancer in this cube, but Eternal Witness is in. Evolution Sage, just a proliferation engine, very strong in a counters matter cube. Evolution Witness, one of these cards that trigger whenever counters are put on it, lets you return permanents from your graveyard to your hand. Mana Gorger Hydra, multiplayer formats. This thing grows so big. Oh my god. You better be ready to answer it, because it's going to explode you every turn forever if you don't. Ornery Tumblewag. So this is a Luminarch Aspirant. Luminarch Aspirant puts a counter on a creature you control at the beginning of each combat. However, this doesn't say you control, it just puts a counter on a creature, which is what makes me more partial to this. This is probably never coming out of the cube. This is like a pinnacle of design that I love for Two-Headed Giant. Like, this is kind of vague wording that lets you stick it on your teammates' creatures. Ravenous Slime's just some grave hate that also grows. It's very good for Golgari because you just run so many removal spells. You get to remove their creatures, and when you remove their creatures, your thing grows. You get to attack them. Reclamation Sage. This is the closest we get to sideboard material in this cube, where it's like, it's destroy target artifact or enchantment when it enters. Right? That's kind of narrow. But it being on a creature is very valuable. It being a elf is very valuable because I believe Marwyn's in the cube. No, Marwyn isn't in the cube. I think Marwyn used to be in the cube. Either way, Reclamation Sage is just a classic card. It's probably a flex slot, if I'm going to be honest, since Marwyn isn't in. Marwyn is, of course, the mana dork that grows with elves. Scurry Oak. This not only gets a benefit from getting counters put on it, but it also has a combo in the cube with Herd Baloth as well. Also triggers and makes a green creature when counters are put on it. And, of course, these combo with Ivy Lane Denizen whenever another green creature enters into your control. So you can make infinite green creatures. I wanted there to be some combo through line throughout all the colors here. So blue has, you know, Deadeye Navigator stuff. White and green can do Presence of Gond combos. And mono green has that combo line as well. And then blue has, of course, also another untapping color. I like a little bit of combo spice in limited. It's fun to search for them while going through. The Desert Champion Enchantress. Yavimaya Dryad is a fun card where it is an infiltrator because you can give an opponent a forest and they can't block it anymore. Maybe their teammate's on green and now it's unblockable completely. But also you can just ramp your teammate with it. You can ramp yourself with it. It's very versatile, very fun. And it's flickerable. Arasta, you have 2 opponents. They're going to be casting some spells. You're going to get some reach blockers. That's a very good deal. It's just a very good standalone card. And it's also just an enchantment, so you can draw off enchantresses. Bramble Sovereign. This is from Battle Bond. Whenever another non-token creature enters, you may pay 1 and a green. If you do, that creature's controller creates a token that's a copy of that creature. So you play this creature on turn 6. Your teammate plays like Flame Tongue Kavu or Noxious Gearhulk. You pay your remaining 1 and a green. They get a copy of that card as well. Oh, yuck. And then you've already gotten your value out of it. So if it gets removed, who cares? But if it doesn't, oh boy, you get to pop off too. Doomscar Warrior is a nice backup creature that gives some value. It also wears auras very nicely because it has trample. It basically draws a card when it hits an opponent and gives that ability to a creature. Eidolon of Blossoms is an enchantment. It's also a good flicker target. Forgotten Ancient. This is like the Bandar, the Scrounging Bandar, but better because it grows like a Hydra and also it moves the counters around on your upkeep, which is just brutal if you can stick those onto like an unblockable creature like Gobin. Oh, nightmare. We've gone over Ivy Lane Denizen. King of the Cold Blood Curse. You can make your teammate's token into a 4/4, for instance, or you can remove an opponent's creature effectively. This is flickerable. This is Lizard Connor's Curse, I believe the name of the card is, in Spider-Man. Ovia lets you cheat. She's an Elvish Piper. So you can put a creature from your hand into play onto the battlefield at instant speed. But also, each creature that's attacking one of your opponents has trample. All of a sudden, you and your teammates' creatures have trample. Very good line of text in addition to just being a cheater. Korvac Troll is a graph creature that lets you regenerate and protect your teammates' creatures. Timeless Witness. This is just much like Eternal Witness. It's good to like saw this in half, right? Good graveyard value stuff. This is a very versatile card. I like Witnesses in Cube. Grothama. Grothama was originally in Battle Bond. It lets you draw your opponent, you and your teammate, a ton of cards. Where you go 5 mana for Grothama, you guys swing your creatures, you kill Grothama with those attacking creatures, and then all of a sudden you draw that many cards, each of you. Also works with the red removal spells, right? So your teammate can flame slash it. You can finish it off with your creature. I've had a play where someone's gone Grothama. They've moved to combat. They attacked with the creatures. I killed spell one of their creatures. Our team got to untap, and then we killed their Grothama and drew that many cards. Hilarious. We basically denied the mid-boss. Gargo's Vicious Watcher. Vigilance, Hydra spells cost 4 less to cast. That doesn't really matter so much as whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos fights. So this protects your stuff from opposing removal because you're going to be able to fight their creature. And then also, Gargos works with auras either from yourself or your teammate, which is hilarious. Sweetgum Recluse puts like 3 counters on each creature that enter the battlefield this turn, and it cascades. Normally, you just put the counters on the cascade creature, but in this case, you can also put it on any teammate's creatures that they cast this turn. Lastly, you have Emergent Woodworm with backup 3. So you can just put 3 counters on something. That creature attacks. They get to cheat a permanent into play from their deck. Or you can put the Emergent Woodworm counters on one of your creatures, right? So it just goes on either creature, the backup. Very fun 2-headed giant mechanic. Green has the most planeswalkers, and it's because they have the most fun planeswalkers, in my opinion. First things first, Vivian can give any creature vigilance and reach, and you can cast creature spells as though they had flash. And she also draws you a couple cards. Just, wow, super fun that you can give your teammates creatures, like big creatures, vigilance and reach. Garrick Wildspeaker, untap 2 target lands, they don't have to be yours. Make a beast to help your Boros teammate go wide, and also an overrun effect on top of all that. Very good. Garrick Primal Hunter, put a beast onto the battlefield, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, which is very good for Gruul Ramp. So once again, just token generation, but also being a card draw spell for Gruul Ramp is kind of valuable for me. Revitalizing Repast, this is a mono green spell in my cube, but it's kind of for Golgari for more fixing. You can put a counter on a creature, it gains indestructible until end of turn. So not only do you trigger all those creatures that trigger when they get a counter, but you also get to protect a combo piece. You get to protect a attacking creature. It's a combat trick, right? So I like those in limited. This is a very flexible one that can go in a lot of different decks. Perfect for a best of 1 format. Crash the Town. This one's really cute. So you can put 2 counters on a target creature. You can give a target creature trample, and or you can give a target creature, when this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw 2 cards. You can mix and match these as you choose across you and your teammates' attacking creatures for turn. Super fun to play with in 2-headed giant. Bite Down, it's just a bite spell. Really that simple. Sarkhan's Resolve, destroy a creature with flying, or Pump Spell, combat trick. Right, versatile removal because this is a best of 1 format. We're not sideboarding here, so being able to destroy that problematic flyer in a green deck or also pump a creature is important. Tangle, this is brutal in 2-headed giant. This is one of the most nasty fogs you can have in a cube like this because you have 2 opponents, and if they alpha strike you, Tangle is double as effective. It fogs 2 combat steps at once and then also taps 2 combat steps worth of creatures for their next untap step. Oh my god, like nasty. It's literally making me sick right now. Broken Wings, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying. Versatile removal, once again, just artifact, creature, or creature with flying. Beautiful. Pulse of Marasa, you can return a creature from your graveyard to your hand or from your teammate's graveyard to your hand. And then you gain 6 life. Heyo, Orzhov life gain shout out. All right, moving on to sorceries, we have Bushwhack, which can just land cycle, but it's also just a fight removal spell. Green has to have removal. This is just bread and butter. Crowd Goes Wild, support assist, so that your teammate can help pay up to X for the spell's mana cost. Support X, and then each creature with a counter on it gains trample until end of turn, so good counter payoff. Also just triggers all the counter creatures. Chatterstorm, this is a storm card for green. Helps them go wide, much like Crowstorm for blue. Winding Way, this is a good mill card, but it also helps creature-heavy decks dig deeper or lands-heavy decks dig deeper. Combo Attack, this is from Battle Bond as well. To target creatures your team controls, deal damage to their power to target creature. Circuitous Route, this is to help support gates, but it's also just a good ramp card. Simple as that. Rancor, give a creature trample +2/+0. When the Rancor goes away, it comes back. That can either go on you or your teammate's creature as well. Wild Growth can go on your teammate's land and ramps you for green. Aspect of Mongoose can go on you or your teammate's creature, protects them, makes them a bit harder to block as well, and then Aspect of Mongoose returns. Fertile Ground, enchants a land. That land taps for an additional mana of that land's controller's choice. So you'll notice so far throughout this cube, by the way, a lot of the auras, they'll typically do something when they enter or when they die, like draw a card, or they'll come back after they've been destroyed. This is because auras is a very removal weak archetype, and not in a way that feels rather rewarding to play around. So having these auras all do something or go on removable targets or less removable targets like lands. Makes it a lot more viable of a strategy. Parametra's Favor, make something into a mana dork, you draw a card. When it enters, you draw a card. Kenris Transformation, it's a 3/3 elk reference, come on. The Test and Training, enters battlefield, draws a card, gets trample. Ancestral Mask, this is a good payoff for a large amount of enchantments in play. Just +2/+2 for each other enchantment, not even just your own, so your teammates can count as well as your opponents. Gift of Paradise, this ramps, but it also gains life for Orzhov life gain. It can ramp you or your teammate. Lure, put this on the largest creature on the board. Alpha Strike, none of the other creatures can be blocked. Only the lure creature can be blocked. Very funny to put on a token that way. Or put on a large indestructible creature that was made indestructible by one of the white indestructible friends. And you have all of a sudden there a repeatable board wipe. Overgrowth, this is the best one of these in my opinion. It makes 2 additional green. It doesn't tap for 2 green. It taps for 2 additional green in addition to the mana it produces. So this is a 1-card combo, kind of, with the land untapper and the untapper here, the Vigian Graft Mage. Because you can go untap the Arbor Elf for 1 and a blue. That untaps your land, you make infinite green mana. Lastly, Presence of Gaunt. I've already explained why this is a combo piece, but also, even outside the lens of a combo, it's just nice to have a token generator. And then Giant Inheritance. This is basically just a big Rancor. It gives +5/+5. Whenever it attacks, create a monster roll attached to up to 1 other target attacking creature. So you get to spread Rancors around. And then when this goes away, it comes back to your hand. So this is like super Rancor. It's so much fun to play with. That ends it for green though. So we just have a smaller section here with Colorless. We'll go over the lands briefly. And the lands are going to go super quick because I basically just have an entire cycle across all of them. So let's go through this. Market Back Walker. This is a good counters payoff. Very good to proliferate this. It's good to place counters on it with backup, stuff like that. So just turning all those counters into cards, super valuable for this cube. Signal Pest is very good for Boros, and it's also good for a Boros teammate, right? You can just put this in your deck if you don't have enough playables, and you're effectively helping your Boros teammate anyway, because the battle cry goes across the board. Eager Construct, I'm not gonna lie, this card reeks, it sucks, it's so bad, but it's for Predict. It's for Predict. Also letting your opponent scry, or your teammate scry 1 is fun, even though it lets your opponent scry as well. Bronze Walrus, scry 2, and it mana fixes. I always like this in any cube with a flicker theme, just because it mana fixes, and it also lets you scry when you flicker it. Steel Dromedary lets you move counters around, and it's also really good with proliferation. A Crow and Horse, this card's brutal in a multiplayer format like this one, where the only other player getting the 3 soldiers that pop out of the Crow and Horse. I'll read this card, hang on. It's a 4-mana 0/4 defender. When it enters the battlefield, an opponent gains control of it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent puts a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield. So 4 mana, you give this to an opponent, and then you pass the turn. You and your teammate get a 1/1 white soldier, even though you gave them a 0/4. And then you just keep getting 1/1s. This is really good for Boros aggro, and it's very fun to play with. In Commander, for example, this card is really kind of bad because you give it to an opponent, and then you have 2 opponents making soldiers, and you also get a soldier. But in this cube, it's only you and your teammate getting the soldiers, which is super valuable, super fun, super tempo heavy. And then eventually you can just blow up the horse, or they blow up the horse themselves, and then you have a wide board to swing in with Battle Cry and whatnot. Cogwork Librarian, love this card in cube. I love some amount of limited matters, like drafting matters cards, and Cogwork Librarian is probably the most fun and most powerful of them. Draft it face up. As you draft a card, you may draft an additional card from that booster pack if you do put Cogwork Librarian into that booster pack. So you get to draft this, and it's basically a redraft for future. If you see a pack and it's like, oh, there's no good card for me, there's 1 good card for my teammate, I can take the Cogwork, and then in future, when there's 3 good cards, you can put the Cogwork in and take 3 cards out of that pack. Tezzeret's Gambit. This is a colorless card in my mind. It's just divination, you draw 2 cards, but it has proliferate on it as well. Hooray. So any color gets divination if they open this card up. Yay for X in mana. Mishra's Bauble. Look at the top card of target player's library. Predict. Draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. It's just a nice cantrip, basically. And then Predict. Manifold Key. Untap another target artifact, or target creature can't be blocked this turn. It's mostly for target creature can't be blocked for this turn. Honestly, this card might go. I thought this cube was going to be more artifact heavy, but it didn't end up being that. I kind of like that you can untap a teammate's artifact, but that's just kind of not the case. Soul Guide Lantern. Enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. It's just some grave hate. You can cycle it if you don't need the grave hate. Grave hate's important to have. Specifically, flexible grave hate like Soul Guide Lantern is important to have in a non-sideboard format that's best of 1 like this one. Voyager Staff, this is 3 mana for a flicker on anything. Ebony Fly can give anything flying in addition to being ramp. So good for Gruul decks or good for any deck that wants to give something flying. And that flying, of course, can reach across the table and help your teammate out. Key to the City can make any creature unblockable, not just your own, and then also discard Outlet Theme. And also you can pay 2 to draw a card again. Mask of Memory, very good for infiltrators. Smuggler's Copter, very good for discard. Mirage Mirror can copy anything. This is very good in a multiplayer format where there's 2 times as many things to copy as there would be in a 1v1 format. Spectral Searchlight, of course you're going to run Spectral Searchlight and Victory Charms that let any player make mana. So like tap, choose a player, that player adds 1 mana. A player of your choice adds Colorless, and this also untaps on your opponent's turn as well. So 2 very flexible rocks that let you ramp you or your opponent, or your teammate rather. All right, as promised, we're going to talk about the land choices. This is going to slow down around here, but it's going to be very quick for this first section, so pay attention. We're just going to look at the Azorius lands because the cycle's the same throughout all the colors. Gates. Every color gets gate. So that's 10 gates already. Idyllic Beachfront. They all get typed duels because there's some amount of land cycling in this cube, and it's important for that land cycling to be able to grab a dual land. Temple of Enlightenment. The Scry lands. You'll never guess what they're for. They're for Protect. Tranquil Cove. Gain lands for the Orzhov life gain player. So suddenly, if you're a 3-color player and you have all 3 of the gain lands and your Orzhov life gain teammate has their gain land, that's 4 more instances of life gain for that Orzhov life gain player. And then on top of that, it's just good fixing, right? So that's the cycle chosen on top of being budget for all of these. So that's the pattern that follows all the way down through these 10. And then we get through 3-color lands. They're all the landscapes. These are just fetch lands. They trigger landfall twice, but also they enter untapped for a colorless immediately if you already have your colors fixed and you need the tempo more. And you can cycle them too, which works with the discard theme, funnily enough. Moving on, we have the individually handpicked lands. And this is where we're going to kind of break it down a little bit more because these lands were handpicked for a reason, either for 5-color fixing or because of utility. Access Tunnel, good for Dimir infiltrators. Ash Barrens, this is a 5-color fixer. Basilisk Gate. There is in this cube, I believe, 16 gates or 17 gates, as well as Circuitous Route to, of course, ramp 2 gates. So you can actually, if you draft Basilisk Gate early, focus on drafting gates and end up with a pretty decent gates deck. And you really don't need more synergy than Basilisk Gate to do that. Black Dragon Gate is fixing for Black X decks. Bazooka Bog, Grave Hate, that's very cheap to run. Cephalid Coliseum works really well with Narset, works really well with the blue-red discard theme. And until then, it's just kind of a blue land. You can also do this on your teammate if they're flooded. Citadel Gate, white X decks, but also is a gate. Cliff Gate, red X decks fixing, but also is a gate. Demolition Field, you got to have some amount of land hate that's easy to run in a best of 1 format. Exclusive Nightclub, this is for the blue-red discard theme because it has Mayhem. You can play it from your graveyard after you discard it that turn. Llanowar Reborn, graft on a land is so much fun, and I put it down here instead of in green because you can kind of just run this in any color. Any color would find this a little bit valuable. Even if you're like a black-red deck and your mana is very good, you can run that and then just like, here is my Fetid Gargantua, I'll put the counter for my Graft land onto it. So it's valuable for that as well. Manor Gate, fixing for green X decks, but is also a gate. Multiversal Passage. Hey, choose a basic land type. Enters. You may pay 2 life. So it's just 5-color fixing. Nesting Grounds. I mentioned this a ton before. Nesting Grounds lets you move counters around. Moving counters around is very valuable in a cube with this many counters in it. Seagate is blue X fixing, but also a gate. Thran Portal is 5-color fixing, but is also a gate. Thriving Bluffs. These are just color X fixing. And then lastly, we have Urban Retreat, which works really well with Flicker as an archetype. And then you can just ramp it into play. Pick up a Hydroid Crisis, for instance, and re-get all that card draw. Stuff like that. Very fun to get with Urban Retreat. Wow, I've explained my entire cube now. So as you can see, the cube isn't entirely all the way there. There's some cards I wish could be more funny in a context of Two-Headed Giant, especially the red removal spells. I need to get a Desolate Field in the mana base, honestly. Or Isolated Temple, I believe it's called. It's a colorless land. You can pay 1 and tap to untap target land. That's a lot of fun in Two-Headed Giant. Maybe a Rishadan Port could be fun because there's all this like land ramp. So you have 1 Voltroned up land and then just going like tap that land on your upkeep is kind of brutal. Overall, though, I hope you enjoyed this kind of long form video. Let me know if you want me to explain any of my other cubes as well. I figured most of you freaks just listen to these videos just to hear me yap. So maybe a longer form video that isn't a stream could fill that niche for you guys. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed. Also, let me know, what would you include in this cube? I am taking criticism if you guys are interested in any sort of cards playing differently in Two-Headed Giant than they would normally in Paper. Okay, bye.